So last week I asked you how you were doing. I know we're in the TV portion, but I asked you how you were doing, and you got mad at me for asking how you were. Let me just say that this week's recording session and last week's recording session, much different. You're in a better mood.
I've been feeling great like the past
I took a B12 today.
week or so.
Yeah, what's that down to? Jesus.
What?
What's that down to?
What's what down to?
Feeling great.
Oh, what's it like? What can I thank for that?
Yeah, what's the secret to happiness?
This week it's been exercise. I got on.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I felt bad the other day to the point where I couldn't do any Thor Ragnarok coverage, and I'd be delighted if you wanted to talk a little bit about it today, since we're late. I know I'm just throwing that out, but we can whatever. So
This is gonna be a 3-hour episode.
hey, I'm down.
I'm down too. I just
We
drank a whole
can do a
Red Bull.
3-hour show, and then we can go to Waffle House.
This is the TV portion, right? We're recording this out of order.
Are we?
I don't know. I mean,
No.
I'm asking you.
No. We just started weekly.
You say fuck it. We're gonna do it live.
We started weekly. We'll do the Mr. Robot at the end of the show.
Fair enough.
For anyone who watches Mr. Robot,
Oh,
we
you
will
caught
be
me off
talking
guard.
about the most recent continuous shot episode, but we'll get to that later. Hold on. I just got a match on Tinder and an immediate message. I'm going to read it.
On the air. What is this? Fighter and the Kid? Because they do this on their show.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's called Chinder because their producer's name is Chin.
That's racist.
Well, he's Asian. So
Oh. I think that here we go. I have
his
a
name. How's it?
I have a solution for racism. White people should name their children black names, Asian names.
It's called appropriation.
I think everyone would feel a whole lot better if white people just stopped naming their kids white names.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not.
I'm gonna have a son, and I'm gonna name him DeMarcus.
Right. I'm not a big fan of, I mean, this is like a really odd conversation to have in the Sight and Sound space. I'm not a big fan of this whole
Racism.
negativity towards quote unquote appropriation, cultural appropriation. Obviously when people do it for the wrong reasons, obviously it's bad. Why did I say obviously so many times? I
don't know.
It's bad. It's a negative thing when you're doing it for the wrong reasons or for a fad or for fashion. But if you are truly inspired by certain things, and I think blurring the cultural lines is a good thing.
So you agree with me?
Yeah.
Did I just have an incredible idea?
It's a little strange.
I'm going to name my daughter Rosarita.
Rosarita? Is that like a Hispanic name?
No, I think that's what my mom drinks.
What?
Anyway, I thought it was a good idea. I came up with it. I haven't, taken the time to articulate it anymore, and you know how I am. But so anyway, there's that, and I can't do the Tinder segment anymore because it was a spam, and I just unmatched.
There you go.
So
you want to do a little bit of hashtag transparency real quick? I know it makes you nervous.
Yeah.
This is more just transparency in my own life.
Let's look into your life, Jay. What do you got?
Papa Jaye, I'm not rich by any means, okay? I'm comfortable, I have a good job, it pays well, and I've got some disposable income just because of my living situation and all of that. October? So I don't know what happened in October, like 3 or 4 years ago. October is always a terrible, terrible, terrible month for me financially.
Car insurance?
Not car insurance. I mean, that comes out every month. So it's.
Oh, you do it monthly?
Yeah. But
6 months.
But September is my birthday, and I have to renew my registration for my car. That's one thing. And then for whatever reason, I just felt really prickly one year and decided to subscribe to all of these yearly, like annual subscriptions, like Amazon, Podbean, a few other things in October. The other day, dude, I was freaking the fuck out. I blew through my entire savings account. Not my entire savings account. I take it back. A savings account that I have for like disposable income.
How?
Dude.
It's because of that couch.
It's not the couch. The couch does have something to do with it. It's some of my it's some of those recurring things, and I guess I was spending too much money over and above that.
Jay,
I know it wasn't good, man. I was freaking out. I was freaking out about it.
hey, I'm glad you brought this up. Money, by the way. I think
You need some money? You want me to loan you some money?
Yeah, it's about time for
Fuck off, because it's not happening.
We split our Photoshop.
That's right.
Is
it that time?
It's getting close.
Are you sure?
I think it's getting close. We'll have to double check.
Yeah. We will. I mean, that's fine. It's all good. Waiting for my
I don't want you to
Christmas
freak
bonus.
out. Hey, if you want an extension,
Yeah.
we can talk about it. I don't want you to freak
What if
out.
I was just like, I'm good, and then you were like, fuck. What do I do?
right.
And I was like,
I depend on that money.
I'll just get my own damn Photoshop.
I depend on that money.
Make it terrible on both of us. No, it's nice that we split Photoshop. If Sight and Sound was incorporated, we could write that off on taxes.
You know how the other day and you've done this a couple times. You know that whole thing where you got so concerned that I was getting a Galaxy phone and you wanted me to have an iPhone. You remember how difficult it felt because I just wouldn't have it? Your version of that is not switching over to Premiere. After all of this time, when I've said, hey, Premiere is 100% the better software, you are still killing it with iMovie.
But it's not necessarily my refusal to switch. It's just I haven't just got around to it.
It feels like
Actually, every weekend I make a point to say, this weekend I'm going to dive into Premiere, but other things get in the way, all this other stuff. And
can you color correct on what you use?
Yeah, I color correct every single thing that I do because everything comes out super red. Hear that, Collider? You guys need to work on that. That's something we should talk about on After Schmo, but they have a terrible problem with how red things are in their videos. It's awful. It's really bad.
I don't know if I've ever noticed it.
But pay attention next time they do the live show.
It's on the Jedi Council set, not the Collider set. Or it's on the Schmoes set, excuse me.
More so on that.
Okay, yeah.
And I notice it because every time I take my screenshots for the thumbnail, dude, I'd like to saturate the hell out of it just to get the redness out.
Yeah. I color correct mine, but all of my videos, if you put them side by side, they all look wildly different. For whatever reason in my room, like my window is awkwardly placed, so
yours turn out a little orangish, which is fine.
It depends.
It
really
depends. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
I like a more blue look.
I do too, but again, at the same time though, you have the white walls, and then if I'm white,
yeah,
I'd like it to be a little bit.
It works in here because this corner is not lit.
But in general, I do want a more blue light than a red light. Yeah, for sure. So, what were we talking about?
We're doing hashtag transparency. I got another one for you. I got kicked out of my office this week at work.
What does that mean?
I will no longer be able to work in the office that I work at.
Oh, you're going to have to be out on the main floor?
No.
Where you can't vape and listen to podcasts?
This is like, we've never talked about my work at all much on this podcast.
No.
But, I work in an office. And before, so I've worked at my job for 7 years. It'll be 7 years in December. And when I started there, I worked in like a cubicle farm. It was just a bunch of cubes, everybody like yelling and screaming on the phone while I'm sitting there trying to do math, like hardcore math, and focus on things so that my company doesn't.
You do math? I thought you just drew pictures.
Use a shit ton of math.
Geometry?
For instance, I have all the main fractions memorized, their decimal points. Like 5/8 is 0.625, 3/8 is 0.375.
Oh, me too.
3/16 is 0.1875.
I know all that too.
If you want to scale anything down to a 1 inch to equals 1 foot, all you do is drop it down 0.8333%. Anyways. What's happening?
Please keep going. Move away from this.
So I worked in this cube farm, and we moved over into a new building, and they said, you know what? The designers need their own offices because they need to be isolated from all these people yelling on the phone so they can focus. And all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, they were like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. Certain people are going to get kicked out of their office. And I was going to have to go into the cubicle, but somebody quit. So I get to take an office that doesn't have any windows in it, which I'm okay with, except I like to work in a darker room. I don't like overhead lighting, like fluorescent lighting.
Me neither. Yeah.
So it's essentially going to be pitch black. But you know what I've got in my Amazon cart right now? Salt lamp.
Okay.
For the office.
Like
yeah.
the rock thing that you've got in the living room, like that?
Exactly. I don't know what it does, but
it cleanses the air.
Yeah,
it probably makes you
whatever.
healthier. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm going to be planning a lot of sight and sound stuff in a dark room from now on.
All right. Now it's my turn.
Let's get it.
Hashtag transparency.
Let's get it.
My birthday is in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Please do not get me anything. And I'm being totally serious, because last year you were the only friend that got me something, and I still haven't even given you your birthday present because I have no idea how to repay you. So I'm asking you, please just refrain from being thoughtful this year. Please don't.
It has nothing to do with being thoughtful. I get. Listen,
you're gonna lap me.
I give
in
people.
Birthday.
I give people presents. One, so that they will feel pressured to get me presents, and two, I loved giving you. I love being the only person that gave you the present, because I will always have that over every single one of your friends that you have.
That's true, but
And
I don't think they care.
I love that.
But what do they
status.
care? They don't know. They don't care at all.
It just makes them feel bad, and I like that. I like it's sort of like it's like a joke. It's like a joke that has a natural premise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only person that I can focus on when it comes to getting presents is Cody Hecker. We've had for some reason we've had a tradition every Christmas we get each other something. Actually, he's probably given me more things than I've been able to reciprocate. I don't know how many I've ever, but like that leftovers poster that's in my videos, he gave me that.
Oh yeah,
that was a surprise
you
one
like
year.
That?
He got me like a Batman, a philosophy book, and I can't remember some of the stuff I've gotten him. But,
did you get him a wedding gift?
No,
I got him a wedding gift.
I don't think I've given any of my friends wedding gifts.
Guess what I got him?
Toaster.
Nope. I got him a bath mat.
Cufflinks.
I got him a bath mat. It was on his
on the thing.
It was on his thing. And guess what? It's in my laundry room
Still
right
got
now.
it? You never gave it to him? All right, I don't feel bad.
Kayla got it out, and she was like, "Is this Cody Hecker's?" And I was like, "Yeah."
That's one of those things that I just didn't retain growing up. Like in society and culture, people just are supposed to know that when they go to a wedding, you provide a gift. And after every wedding I've been to, I've realized that I didn't even think to get them a gift. Like I didn't even consider the fact that they have a registry. I didn't remember, I don't remember any of those couples having their own website. Like they normally do that kind of stuff. All of that, no. Well, when it comes to Sturgill, I was his best man. So I consider my gift to him being the knockout best man speech that I gave. Have you heard the story of that,
Yes.
by the way?
Your presence is a present.
No, I'm talking about how the speech actually went down.
Yes, and your perception of it is much different than other people's. Like, isn't that the one where Eric said that you bombed?
No, I didn't bomb.
That's what Eric said.
No, essentially what happened was, okay.
Let's just get this straight.
I am very good at that kind of thing. Like public speaking and preparing. It was all prepared, written down. I write all my own jokes and stuff. And this, I took public speaking classes throughout high school. It was something I was just naturally good at. But I've also I've always been controversial with this stuff. In high school, I gave a speech that was purely just about ripping Noah's Ark and the fact that it couldn't exist. I had a Christian woman in the back of the class crying her eyes out. Like I made a woman cry because I was disproving Noah's Ark. And so that's just to give you some context. So my 21st birthday was a roast. So it was the exact same. If you've ever seen these Comedy Central roasts, it was the exact same design. Eric was the roast master, so he hosted the event, and I had 4 friends turn by turn get up and do their bits. And I wrote some of their jokes because they needed some help, so I helped them write some of their jokes or whatever. And you wrote jokes about yourself? No, we roasted everyone there. But like again, like how Comedy Central does it, you kind of go around the room and then you pick your target. So at the end of it, I blasted everyone, and I killed. Every single person that was there claims that they had the best set. And yes, I guess I'm just following suit, but mine was really the best. I have it in my drawer to prove it.
I'm going to fact check this perception with Eric.
Well, he's going to say that he did the best, but
okay.
It's on tape. I got the most laughs. I was also the most, again, controversial. One of my jokes for Eric. Let's see what you think about this. Eric is like a piece of paper, pale white with 3 gaping holes. That not only does that insinuate that he takes it in the ass and has an open mouth, but it also insinuates that he has a vagina.
Okay. Yeah. Very good.
Anyway, let me get straight to the point here. My speech, I didn't restrict myself based on this setting. Of course, there's grandparents and there's extended family, there's kids, and Sturgill's wife is not like anyone I would have ever like hung out with in college. She's like very sorority, and her crew, all of her friends and the coupled friends that are invited. You should see these things. I when I went to their daughter's birthday party, I just looked around the room and was like, why I should never be with any of these type of people.
You can't relate to these people.
Not at all. They're very highbrow, very conservative, very sorority and fraternity like frat bros.
Right.
And that's not my thing at all.
Is Sturgill like that?
Sturgill's not at all like that. No. So that was a tough crowd when I was, doing my comedy, doing my routine. They didn't have any of it.
Right.
And so Eric is commenting on the fact that I had some controversial jokes that all of us loved because they knew what I was doing, but a lot, like half of the room had just the most dreadful faces as to what I was doing. They were absolutely disgusted. And I loved it. I relished in it. I didn't give a fuck about those people because they weren't my crew.
Right.
And I thought about throughout the thing calling them out and just started roasting them, but I didn't. Anyway, I don't remember why I brought this up.
Is that it?
Where did I go with that?
I don't know.
How did I even bring
CTE?
that? I said
you're not even high.
I wanted to be transparent. Where was I going with that?
I don't know, man.
Okay, well here's the other. I feel like I started something and then I'm not going to finish.
You're rambling.
So okay. the other thing that I wanted to talk about, #transparency. Since puberty, I've been self-conscious about my eyebrows.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Been for years.
Got a couple woolly worms living up there?
I do. The majority of my life, I have been self-conscious of my eyebrows. I have very thick, lustrous eyebrows. And
lustrous.
I've talked to you and Kayla about this before, how over the years I groomed them, trimmed them, shaved them, whatever. Done a few different things over the years. I'm about to get reckless, and some might call it sexist, but I'm considering this a bro talk that we have right now.
Okay.
So forgive me if I insult anybody, but
with eyebrow talk, I mean I'd say it's fine.
You don't know where I'm going.
Okay.
So even up until like last month, I was trimming my eyebrows, and then I realized that I just didn't want to do it anymore. And it was mainly because I'm on Tinder and I see all these women, and you know how the thing right now is the thick, drawn eyebrows, right?
I guess so. With who?
You have to know that.
With men or women?
Young women. Young women are drawing on their eyebrows. How do you not know this?
That's not for me. If I see some
you're saying you don't like that.
If I see some art with some eyebrows, that's a hard no for me.
Okay. So here's where I'm going to get a bit reckless here. For one, when I was growing up, thin eyebrows were the thing. Girls would almost nearly remove their entire eyebrows. They were always waxing and trimming them, and that was the thing. And then over time, it's like it's so weird to me, and this is where I'm getting reckless, because all of a sudden one girl says, "This is what we're doing now," then they all do it, and that has been one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yeah.
So whether it's a Kardashian or whatever influencer there is that decided that thick eyebrows is what they were doing, and then all of them do it to copy each other.
Yeah.
And that is so frustrating to me, because look, I get being self-conscious. That's what I'm here to say. I'm self-conscious of my appearance in certain ways. And so I totally get it. And I know that women in this day and age feel a lot of pressure when it comes to their looks. And I hate that for them. And it's just so frustrating, because I think that there are women that are out there that already are naturally beautiful or whatever, but because someone said thick eyebrows, they changed how they look and then draw on woolly worms. And some of them are horrible. I've seen some terrible memes of girls just changing their appearance.
Right.
And it's like, everybody looks different. And I don't know if you're like, I know you might have to figure out the best way that you look, but there are some times that are just really frustrating when girls just do what every other girl is doing. Even going back to those funny memes of, like, you've seen those pictures where it's Han Solo season and it's pictures of girls just wearing Han Solo outfits.
Yeah, of course.
That epitomizes what I'm talking about, but I'm mainly talking about the eyebrows, because again, the fact that girls switch to thick eyebrows, that made me feel a whole lot better about it. So I just quit caring. But I for one, I'm fascinated by me in my lifetime seeing women make that change, and how I've also followed that suit. Because when they were trimming their eyebrows, I was trimming my eyebrows, now it's reversed.
Here's my thing with this. It's not... I think it's easy to look at a fashion trend that maybe, especially we don't understand. I mean, that could traverse sex. I mean, there's male fashion trends that I don't understand, and you probably don't understand, and this and that. And I think there probably is a conversation to be had regarding, I like to keep my ear to the ground with the fashion world. I don't think it's always necessarily like a self-conscious, personal image sort of thing where it's like, I have to be this, or this beautiful person is like this. That exists. Of course it exists, but I don't think it's necessarily always like that. Sometimes it could just be like, I like the way that looks. For instance, I love the way that joggers look with streetwear. I like the way that they showcase tennis shoes. I think it's fantastic. For me personally, I can't wear joggers. Like, I don't think they look great on me. That's not a self-conscious thing. It's just like the style, even though I like it, the way that it looks, it's just not necessarily for me. I also cannot wear I love my denim. I'm wearing a denim on denim right now. I love the way denim jackets look. I cannot wear a denim jacket without wearing a hoodie. I think it looks weird on me. I don't know what it is. It's got to have a hood on the underneath.
I could see that.
But I see tons of people all the time. Kayla rocks a denim jacket all the time, but she's a girl, obviously. So I don't think it's always about that. But you do bring up a good point. It's also hilarious. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this or not. I feel like at least my perspective, the image that women try to strive for has completely changed from most of my life. Most of my life, women were like, doing those crazy diets where they're just eating like 1 carrot stick, smelling the air and like drinking lime juice or something like that to be as thin as possible to match up with these models types of weight.
Right.
That's like completely gone, I feel like. And the two like body styles that I see that women are like trying to aspire to, and I could be completely off on this and somebody can correct me and that's perfectly fine, but it's like the more fit type of like, maybe like a CrossFit type of body, or just a body that's more voluptuous and curvy and whatnot.
It's those Kardashians. And I'm serious.
And it's funny too, because I think men in general, most men, at least myself and most people that I know, they've always said that I'm not necessarily attracted to the women that are like the bone thin, skinny model type of person. I like, women who are more full bodied and whatnot. And just like that embrace the feminine characteristics of a natural female body.
We
love the ladies.
Definitely. I've always
Absolutely. We respect the ladies.
I do.
And we
I
love
mean,
them.
I would like to go back to an age where I didn't feel guilty for like making fun of them, though. You know what I mean? Like, I felt so worried about bringing this up because I didn't want to offend anyone. But there was a time when we could just, make fun of girls, and girls could make fun of guys for things that we do. And
Yeah.
I mean,
I make fun of a girl all day if there's a.
I just want to get back to, and I'm being serious.
Listen, women have, for like the last 5 years, embraced this thing that has also gone over into male fashion, what I call the Destro sweater. Destro from G.I. Joe would wear this jacket that had like a cobra collar on it.
Yeah.
And women wear those now. And I'm like, why that? No, that doesn't look good. There's also,
remember when like a few summers ago they all switched to the mom jeans. It's like, what are you doing there?
Where did that come from?
Also, another thing that irritates me.
Which is fine, whatever.
Another thing that irritates me, bangs.
Oh, I'm big on bangs.
There are some women that can pull it off.
There's a meme out there. It's a cat wearing a lime helmet.
Well, of course.
That's what some bangs look like.
Yeah, I just think women need to be careful.
Kayla the other day was
but I'm bald, so who knows?
Kayla the other day was like, I want bangs. I'm going to do bangs.
Oh,
and I showed her the picture of that, and she's like, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh no.
And I was like, don't do this. Don't do the cat wearing the lime helmet.
Oh no. Look, you can criticize me. I'm bald and not in shape. I just want to be able to make fun of people. Make fun of me all you want.
Okay.
I'd like to be able to cut up with someone of another race and make fun of that race, and they make fun of me, and then we all laugh about it in harmony because we just want to go back to the day and age where not everything is so PC.
Yeah, for sure. We need to get
fucking miss those days.
We have these types of discussions. I feel like they'd be great for like a bigger room. Like we need to get Carl and Mitchell over here to
I would love
let us know.
Listen, I want Carl and I to go back and forth making fun of each other.
Yeah.
I would love that.
But here's the thing about Carl. Carl and I are going to podcast.
I want him to rip white people.
Carl is white.
No, Mitchell.
Okay.
I meant Mitchell. I'm sorry. That was racist of me. I confused the black guy and the white guy.
I mean, Carl is
I see no color.
Carl is hilarious because we're going to podcast soon just talking about music in general, some music that we like.
Of course.
But he's hilarious. We were working on a song, one of the new Separator songs, and I told him, I was like, man, something about this, I'm just not feeling like what I'm doing. I'm having a hard time getting this mix right. And his response was, it's okay, man. You can do it. all you gotta do is just add your flavor. Spend some time with it. I'm sure it's gonna be fantastic. It was just like the most positive thing ever, and I was like, man, thanks, Carl. And I did. I went home. I spent more time with it. I added some stuff to it, and it's great. It might be the best sounding thing that, at least the instrumental so far. It's like the best sounding thing that we've ever done, and it was so nice.
I have had the exact opposite type of interactions with Josh and Eric when they've been writing music.
Yeah.
Because, again, they're in Nashville. I'm still in Kentucky. And so they'll spend God knows how long on a song. And then they think that they're done because they've exported it. Maybe not done, but they think that they're done and that they figured things out, right? Then they'll send it to me excited. And then when it's my time to like contribute my ideas, they just fucking write it off. Like, no, we're done. And it's like, you guys have been together for like 4 hours. You came up with this song. Now I'm just now getting involved because I'm hearing it for the first time, and they don't want to have anything. They don't want anything to do with what I've said. It's so annoying.
Well, and it's always interesting too. I mean, the thing about Carl and I, when we sit down and write music, it's just like, it's so, I don't know. It's so weird. It's like, I feel like we should be lighting incense and fucking looking at the stars because we're like, I don't know. It's just like really weird. It gets really crazy and I don't know, experimental.
I would like that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't know.
It's definitely interesting. It's a much better now than it was before, I think, because I don't know. He would leave and I would do my thing and I listen back to stuff now and I'm like, this was just me dicking around.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It turns out we talked about this last week, but anyways, I don't know. Listen, we need to go ahead and get on with this show because we have so much shit to talk about. I mean, I don't know what happened. Whenever we do an after party, I think like I get really self-conscious about Sight and Sound Weekly because I'm like, man, you know, like we really get excited for after party because they're not regular and they come up and it's fun to just talk sometimes. And then I'm like, man, sometimes we don't have the best news stories. And then the next week we just have, I mean, we might leave things out like of this conversation.
We have an overabundance of stories to discuss.
I had 5. I just completely skipped what I typically do on my music show. And I was like, I just have to talk about current events.
Yeah.
And I only got through 2 of the 5 or 6 that were even listed. It's just been
donezo?
It's been a crazy, crazy week. I talked for 45 minutes on those 2 topics. I mean, it was intense. I absolutely ripped into Taylor Swift. And I love it.
I like how someone posted today, and granted, I think this is very unfair because I think there are many examples of this.
Yeah.
But I saw on Twitter, actually right before I came over here, someone called her out. It's like, with all of this stuff going on in the world, I can't handle listening to Taylor Swift sing about herself. And
most people would have no idea because most people haven't heard her album.
I get the point. Yeah, funny.
It's not on fucking
I get
services.
that point, but you could say that about any. I mean, you can.
Yeah, you know what? Let's not her. I mean,
I just thought it was funny that she ended up being the target.
Yeah, to be. I mean, at least give her some credit. It's not her fault that all this stuff is going on, and she just so happened to have an album. I mean, that came out. It's just. I mean, where do you want to start with this? Do you want to start with movies or music?
I would be more comfortable starting with music.
That's fine.
Because I want to take a break and I need to refresh my memory on what we talk about with movies. Hashtag transparency.
Hashtag transparency. I'm still getting over some sicknesses. The other day, do you know that I have bad nosebleeds? Did I get really bad nosebleeds?
I don't know.
So the other day I was just laying in bed and I could tell my nose was dry and I just touched just went like this, like brushed my nose with my finger. And I was laying in bed and I could feel like something dripping, like going down my throat. I was like, there's no way my nose is bleeding just from me touching it like this. So I was like, well, I'm going to prepare myself. So I like plugged my nose with my fingers as hard as I could to get it to stop. And I got up and I had to get up to like take a shower and go to work. And I got in the shower and it had stopped bleeding, but I couldn't breathe out of my left nose. And I was like, what's going on? And so I blew my nose, like not hard, but just like blew it a little bit. And it started bleeding a little bit again, but I still couldn't breathe. So then I blew it even harder. And the biggest blood clot came out of my nose. And it just, I mean, it was like a fucking water faucet just going crazy.
Why do you have nosebleeds? It's just from your nose being dry?
Yeah, it's always from my nose being dry. Just allergies and stuff like that. Well, I mean, it's wintertime.
I didn't know you had allergies. I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, just like seasonal allergies in general.
Yeah, I don't know.
So now I'm 30 as fuck, and I use menthol Afrin to keep my nose moist.
I'm the only person I know that's not allergic to anything, I think.
Yeah. We've talked about that before. All right, anyways, music. So I guess I'll just lead it off just getting your take on this whole... I ranted and raved about this whole Taylor Swift thing on my music show, and I get passionate about streaming service stuff.
You like music.
I'm very defensive about all of that stuff, and because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and like Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins was just on Joe Rogan, and one of the things he constantly he has big musicians on his podcast. One of the things he always asks them is like their opinion.
Billy Corgan or Joe Rogan? Does he have his own podcast?
No, he might, but Billy Corgan owns his own wrestling company. But anyways, Joe Rogan always asks these big artists what their thoughts on streaming services and whatnot are. And a lot of these upper echelon artists are, of course, they turn their noses to it because they're not making the same money. Billy Corgan actually said the same thing that I've always screamed at my, whatever podcast device I'm listening to.
Yeah.
He pretty much said people get frustrated by these streaming services because they're not paying the artists enough. But he said, who do you think agreed these fees? The record companies. The record companies accepted money from Spotify and these other companies and they're paying their own artists less. So
probably because they didn't have a fucking choice. Because that's just where the world went.
I mean, essentially, but I mean, yeah, they had to negotiate these fees to begin with. But this whole idea of Taylor Swift not putting her music on a streaming service for this album, that's not the case. It's not like she's just withholding the album. She had the release date, which was this past Friday, and everybody thought it wasn't like an exclusive album release on Apple Music or Spotify or wherever. She just said, if you want my album on the she didn't say this, but when people woke up, the only place they could get it was to actually buy it from her. And I get that. That's a business move and a business decision, and it will be on streaming services eventually. I just wanted to rehash her relationship with the streaming services, and I think it's kind of shitty I think she should have told people that this was going to be the case.
I didn't realize that she had not done that.
Yeah.
That she had done that.
Yeah, she just said, my album is coming out on this date. And then when I pretty much illustrated the point, I said, think about the younger fans of Taylor Swift, maybe let's say people who don't have an income, like kids, who were really excited to get on Apple Music or Spotify and listen to her album. And then they woke up and they had to buy it. But then they had to go ask their mom or dad or what.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just
they had to go to Sam Goody.
It would have been nice for people, for her to actually inform the audience that this was going to be the case. Just have a little bit more transparency. I'm about to sneeze. I need you to talk.
What if you just blow blood out of your nose right now?
I don't think it's going to
happen.
That'd
be nuts.
Okay, it's gone away.
I think that's very interesting. I would love to know. There's a couple things. I would love to know what the numbers are on this. Like, how it truly affected her, because I think that, well, it depends. I don't know a lot about CDs anymore. I don't know how well they do anymore. So
they're just buying it on iTunes or Amazon, something like that.
Right. I would just be curious how much this actually affects her by having done this. But at the same time, I guess I need to ask you as well. Like, what's the word on the fact that she might be leaving? Well, maybe not, because I don't think. When I was growing up, I think when artists kind of transitioned into like the bad territory, I don't remember it really affecting how I was able to listen to it or not. But what I'm getting to is, how is her change in general affecting, and I'm talking musically.
Yeah.
She's got this whole different persona now.
Yeah, so her punk rock phase, her rebel phase.
And I personally think it's made her music worse. But
stylistically, it's pretty much made no difference. It's all lyrical content for the most part.
Look What You Made Me Do is a terrible song.
Yeah, it is.
It was terrible when it first came out, and I work in a place that plays it a dozen times a day.
Yeah.
Every day. I think it's horrible. Just awful.
So what's your question about?
I was just curious how, in general, that the landscape of her change, does that affect anything? Has that affected anything?
Well,
you keep your ear to the ground.
This is the first time, I think, in her career where she's kind of the villain. Like, obviously, people have their opinion of her, and whatever that may be. But the last thing that happened with Taylor Swift prior to this happening was Kanye West and Kim Kardashian
Snapchat
outing her for being a fucking liar.
One of those new songs covers that, and she throws more shade at them again. And
right.
That's another question too. Is it anyone on her side?
I mean, I'm sure she has a drove of fans that are probably very, which they're going to be on her side no matter what. But it's just, she just has this persona of being. We talked about it before when we covered this album being announced. Just the fact that she's very disingenuous, and this whole streaming service thing is is a part of that. And I covered it at my music show. The fact that she publicly criticized Spotify for their royalty rates, but then turned around and accepted a check from Apple Music to be their spokesperson. And I made the joke of saying, like, well, it wasn't really a joke. Apple Music and Spotify's rates are virtually the exact same.
Yeah.
So what the fuck were you doing?
Yeah.
And it, again, just goes back into the whole disingenuous factor. But she's not the only artist to do this. I mean, Adele did this with her last album. Beyonce's album, it's still on a streaming service. It's still not on Spotify. It's still not on Apple Music. But, and I've always said it, go make your money, but I'm obviously going to be critical of how you're doing that. I think looking at this whole thing and to look at the other landscapes of the pop culture world, movies and TV, there's no way that people, we talked about this before too, there's no like agreed upon way that people are just putting out music. And I get it why that is, because anybody can make music. You just put a song on Apple Music and Spotify. Like how do people figure that out? I think at one point or another, like, listen, I like listening to all of my music on Spotify, not just because it's subscription service, but even things that I buy. Like if I remember I bought Drake's If You're Reading This, It's Too Late on iTunes when it came out. Like, I would have liked to have bought that and still been able to listen to it on Spotify, and I know I can do that. But it's just like, why? There's
a long way around.
Yeah, there should be a way that, I mean, at least a way, if I want to buy my music on Spotify, then I can.
That's also frustrating for me because especially right now, we're sending MP3s back and forth to each other on Dropbox and things like that, and I can't open it in Spotify on my phone. I have to use the Dropbox player or whatever, and Dropbox player goes away if you go to another app, and it doesn't continuously play in the way that Spotify would. So that's been kind of annoying too. But I think it would work the same way if I used it from my computer and inserted it into my library there. Then I could access it. But it's just kind of the long way around, and I don't particularly care for that.
And to be critical of Spotify too, just because we're transitioning out of this Taylor Swift stuff, Spotify needs to figure some shit out themselves. They're obviously a fan. They're the pinnacle. They're the golden standard of how all this is being done. But even they have some room to grow. Like you and I both here recently have been dealing with like the artist side of things and managing content on there, and just the way that they have it done. Like there's a much better. Listen, I get it. They don't want to just open it up to where like YouTube, where anybody can just upload their music there.
Right.
I get that. However, there should be a way where I could just like at least sign up for it, apply for it, whatever, do all the stuff, and just be able to like sign in like I do on YouTube and edit my own page and all this stuff. And you can kind of do that, but like if you sign up for it today, if you were to ask them, I want access to be able to manage my page, they won't. It took me like 2 months for them to get back to me.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
I also think in general, because I don't handle that side of it, but in general, I think the app is just too busy. Like, we talked about the other day how we don't even consider Spotify as a podcast player.
Right.
Even though their podcast library is continually growing.
Right.
But it feels way too clunky, and it feels like it's way too busy on that app. And I only want to search for bands, and it's like all the other tabs and stuff that they have going on there.
What's strange to me is that they put a lot more like aesthetic work into their web player than they do their, like, it takes them forever to update major things on their mobile app.
Yeah.
Like, what's weird about that is I'm convinced that they change the font every 3 weeks. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I have no idea why. And I noticed that shit. I'm like,
right.
I can read this fucking song. What song is this? It's ridiculous. But this is going to transition us nicely into the bigger topic that I want to discuss, which is this news of Kanye West launching his own streaming service. First of all, this comes on the tail end or the backside of Kanye West returned to the stage. He made his first public appearance in a concert form. Since his meltdown, he took the stage with Kid Cudi and performed Father Stretch My Hands Part 2, which is awesome. It's cool to see him out and about. He was hyped as fuck. You could tell. I mean, this guy's a born performer. He is such an incredible and amazing performer. And when he took that stage, you could tell that he was just like letting out all this stuff, and it was really nice. But this news, and it's funny that we're talking about this because it's sort of ties into this whole Disney Fox thing where you had this big report that comes out, but if you read a little bit deeper, it's not, there's more to it than what exists.
Yeah.
It was announced that he had filed for a patent for a streaming service, quote unquote, or a tech service called Yeezy Sound. And a lot of people kind of freaked out because they saw echoes of the whole Jay-Z Untitled thing, which I've been very outspoken about. And somebody asked me, I think in our Facebook group, what my opinion of it was. And I pretty much just said, if this is a legitimate streaming service to compete with Spotify and Apple, it's fucking stupid. Like,
yeah.
I've been a Kanye defender for a very, very long time, but I can't defend that decision. But if you read deeper into it, that's actually not really what it is. Kanye West might be the first person to do exactly what musicians should be doing. And that is, and we've seen other people do it in movies and television. They're essentially cutting out the middleman. He's cutting out the middleman. He's saying, I don't need Spotify. I don't need Apple. I can come up with my own digital platform and app to house all this content that I want to distribute. I can put out my songs. I can put out my music. If I want to do commentary, if I want to do podcasts, videos, movies, all this stuff.
So the service is everything Kanye. And everything Kanye wants on it, whether it's another band that or artist that he represents, what have you, and he just wants that to be their content.
Essentially, what people are theorizing is that's exactly what that's going to be. That he has no desire to get into the music streaming business to where he's going to be bringing in different artists and this and that. That's not. He doesn't want any part of that. He wants to have a platform to where he can control what happens on it. And he can control, he doesn't have to negotiate royalty rates and all this other bullshit. And if he wants to put out a music video, he doesn't necessarily have to put it out on YouTube. He can put it out on this own thing, his fashion shows, all this stuff. I mean, this is a guy who is a Renaissance man, essentially.
Right.
He has his hands in so many other things. Musicians need to take advantage of the internet. The internet, there is a lot of available real estate on the internet for music right now, believe it or not.
And again, going back to Taylor Swift, we see today artists are still so much relying on the old way of doing things when it comes to just, again, worrying about the representation and worrying about being a part of the label and have everything managed in that particular way, whereas he is trying to move away from all of that.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's the direction I think that we are in, and we're sort of moving out of the first stage of new media where people are cutting the cord, and we have all these apps competing with each other, and there's issues with that, and we're watching more YouTube content, taking in more podcast content, and all this stuff, and music has to be a part of that, and that's something that we've talked about a lot. That musicians need to take advantage of social media and all of these things. It's just that now I think he's going to be the first person. I mean, why couldn't Drake do something like this? Drake talked before about wanting to have his own late night talk show on HBO or whatever. Why do it on HBO? Control your own content. Do your own thing. That's why we did Sight and Sound. Like, that's why we have Sight and Sound. We can do whatever the hell we want to do.
Essentially, Kanye and Drake need to follow in our footsteps.
Yeah. But actually, what's hilarious about bringing up those two names, a lot of why Kanye is doing this is because of his relationship with Drake. They want to put out a Watch the Throne style album together. Right. They have the material. They've had it forever. The things that are standing in their way are things like Kanye was with Tidal, Drake is with Apple Music. How in the hell are they going to do that? Fuck that. Who cares? let's just do what the hell we want to do.
Right.
That's the great thing about the internet, is that, and technology in general, is that it's breaking down these walls and the things that Kanye West talks about. He says the new racism is classism. The new classism are these structures that says only these people can make movies. Only these people can make music.
Right.
You simple folk down here, simple Jacks and simple Janes, they can't, you're not allowed. The internet and technology makes it possible for you and I to put out music and shit like that.
Right.
So that's cool. Kanye West for president, 2020, when Sight and Sound Sports is going to
We'll have
launch.
Kanye. We'll have The Rock. We have Joe Biden, apparently, is rumored. We have Mark Cuban. We have Bob Iger. Who else is running for president in 2020? Ton of people.
Kid Rock.
Ivanka. Kid Rock.
You know, he just completely just like was like, that's not real. Did you know that? He came out finally and was like, this isn't happening. There's no way in hell that I'm running for any sort of office.
I didn't know he was actually planning.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I didn't know anything about that.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I know that he loves Trump, but I didn't know that it had anything to do with him actually wanting to run. Or
Yeah, he was
like
going to
that.
be like a state representative, I think, for Michigan, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a big thing for a minute. And then
Michigan.
he's from Detroit.
Yeah. I guess I knew that.
All right, there's one other music topic that I do just want to sort of get your opinion on. What do you know about Sturgill Simpson?
His first name is the name of my best friend.
What else do you know about him?
His last name is a hit cartoon series.
Is that it?
You saw him in person.
I did. He was wearing the
a
same
couple-
shoes that night that I saw him as he was in this video that we're about
I'm
to
glad
talk
you
about.
noticed that. And the other thing is that he's from your hometown.
Sort of, yeah. He went to the high
And-
school that I went to.
And what else do I know? I've probably heard a couple of his songs, and that's it.
And his album was nominated for Album of the Year at the Grammys, up against Adele, Drake, Justin Bieber, and Taylor Swift. Was she nominated?
That was a good album for
It wasn't Taylor
Bieber.
Swift. It was Justin Bieber's best album, for sure. Anyways, Sturgill Simpson is a country music artist. Not a part of the pop country that Nashville sort of pumps out, but more of the more artistic country, the more respectable country, sort of hearkening back
Like
to
Zach Brown Band.
no, not so much.
Crossed my fingers. I was like, am I right about this?
No. It's sort of harkening back to the more classical days of country, not classical in the sense of like Johnny Cash, but more like Randy Travis and, before, what's his name? What's that guy's name? Garth Brooks. Sort of made it
Rock and
more
rolled it.
pop. Yeah. Amazing. I love this guy. A video came out this past week where he was standing outside of, is it the Bridgestone Arena down in Nashville, where they were having the Country Music Awards. He was standing outside on the street protesting, playing his guitar like they used to do back in the folk days. Bob Dylan playing guitar on the street, protesting against not only the Country Music Awards, but essentially all of Nashville. and he was doing it. He was doing it to raise money for the ACLU, and somebody asked him to give a fake award speech, and he said, "Yeah, I'll give one." He said, "Take it from a guy that owns guns, a lot of guns. There's no reason for anybody to own a machine gun." He said, "Gay people should be able to be married and live happily as long as they want to, and police brutality against black people is bad and all this other
I
stuff."
really like this guy.
All of these, and listen, I'm not here to talk about the politics of it. All I'm trying to say, and then he also, a lot of this comes from the fact that he completely shunned the pop country people out there in coming out of Nashville, because when Merle Haggard passed away, he said that they sort of hitched their cart on the back of him and being like, oh, R.I.P. Merle Haggard, when they just didn't represent anything that this guy believed in, where he had more progressive ideas and whatnot.
Right.
And he said, I'm probably going to be shunned from the country community, but I don't give a shit. All I care about is the things that are right in the world and that I believe in. And it's just amazing that there's this guy who is really, really pushing the genre of country music forward, a guy that's being celebrated as a crossover artist by the Grammys and this and that, a guy that's really, really good friends with Joe Rogan. He's been on his podcast multiple times and singing about DMT and marijuana and drugs and stuff like that.
Hell yes.
It's just like this guy is not only doing all these things, but he's going out there and he's doing one of the most punk rock things that you can do by saying, fuck these people that are supposed to be my niche and my corner. I wanted to tweet at it. He doesn't have Twitter, but I was going to tweet at him and I said, hey, Sturgill Simpson, how about you make the new Nashville in Lexington, Kentucky? That would be fucking awesome.
That would be sick.
I just think it's really cool. And we know a lot of people that live in Nashville, and that town is sort of wrapped up in this whole idea about, you know, Music City and country music and all that stuff. But it is a very, very progressive city and a very, very progressive place that I don't think, and we can relate to this because we come from a state that doesn't necessarily share all of our ideals and this and that.
And depending on where you go in Tennessee, it's also the same place. Like, your statement, however, I mean, it's correct, but it's also very strange. It's a weird medley in Tennessee. It's a mix of like really conservative views. Like Sturgill Simpson, I don't think at all speaks for the primary views of people in Tennessee. Right. But again, Nashville in particular is different than Chattanooga or wherever else you might go in Tennessee. But yeah, I do find that very interesting.
Yeah, and I think and we could get into an even bigger discussion, but I won't in the interest of time. But the fact that you have this metropolitan area, which most metropolitan areas in cities, regardless of how their state votes, are typically more progressive. And
Lexington and Louisville were the only blue dots in last year's election.
You have this entire community of music that who knows what their ideals are, but they formulate their opinions and views, I would assume, based on what the demographic of their listenership is going to be.
Exactly. I was going to say, I mean, I don't think there's any, as far as I know, and you would know more than I would, but I don't think there's any other country artist that is speaking about those issues. Right. And not because they don't necessarily...
At least the popular ones.
I would assume that there are plenty of people who genuinely... disagree with those. I could see most country artists defending the NRA, gun rights, things like that. But if there are country artists that don't and do agree with Sturgill Simpson, they're cowards and they're not actually speaking about it. And it's one of those things where they would they believe that it harms their reputation and because they're alienating their audience in that way. And that's why so few people. I mean, it's the same thing in sports. It's why you see so many. It's why you don't hear anything out of any athlete in the NFL or any head coach from the NFL. I mean, basketball is a more vocal sport, absolutely, but it's the same thing. It's because you know that it would just be alienating your audience, and you don't want to upset anybody because there's so much money involved.
Yeah, and I think to sort of put a bow on this, and we'll take a break. I think
we're not done with music.
Oh, we're not?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I think the thing that we need to pinpoint on here and fixate on here is, again, not necessarily the political stuff, but just the risk that this guy's taken to step outside of the box. And people like that, regardless of if you agree with him or disagree with him, you need to at least respect him for doing that. Because, I mean, you know, I look at punk rock artists today, quote unquote, that sing about certain things, but they're still signed to like corporate major labels. I'm looking at you, Anti-Flag. And it's just like, what are we really doing here? I mean, you know, again, this is a guy that's doing something really fucking cool. And I'm proud of him to be a Kentuckian and all these things. And it's just really cool. It's like a feel-good story, in my opinion. What was the last music topic?
Eminem.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I actually had a musical take this week.
That's
for
right.
you.
And I stole it.
I was so excited. I brought it to you and Luke in our group text, and it was immediately disrupted by Justice League talk. So a couple hours later, I actually got to give you my sort of pitch. So we know you talked about it on your music show.
I did. I broke down the song a little bit after listening to it, and there's a few things here real quick. First of all, we just talked about Eminem not that long ago with this whole Donald Trump freestyle that he did.
That everyone just forgot about all of a sudden.
And
the news space moves so quickly nowadays.
And then there was this whole thing about, does he have a new album? Does he not? There was some sort of viral marketing going around. And then the other Friday, on New Music Friday, he dropped this song. And if you heard that discussion, there is some new stuff I want to talk about. I want to get your take on it, but then I also want to talk about the reactions from the rest of the musical community, the musical critical community, and whatnot. So, what's your take on this song? It's called "Walk on Water."
Yeah,
and it features Beyonce.
So I thought this was an incredibly smart decision to put this song out, because you even talked about how Eminem probably, and there's some validation to this, hasn't aged as well as an artist.
Right.
It's hard to see him as a relevant artist nowadays. He's no longer, So I thought it was very smart to do this, because this entire song basically creates, at least it did for me, creates an empathy from his audience. The song is about his struggle and the pressure that he feels to come back as an artist and to be in the forefront, because he doesn't think that he can fulfill our expectations.
It's a very meta song.
It's a very meta song, and I thought that was a great way to introduce us to his next project, because I think that he wanted us to feel for him, and as JTE would say, lower our expectations, maybe. But at the same time, that's what his song's about. But he attaches Beyonce to it.
Right. It's a big move.
That goes without saying. I mean,
it's
obviously,
a huge move.
Obviously, that's a huge move. And the third thing, the way he ends the song, he just kind of blows up very briefly. And I think that is actually a representation of what we're going to get from the rest of the album. That's just my prediction. That's just my take. So I think it's very smart to he cracked open the door and convinced us to open it. And I think he's actually going to blow us away. And it might not be the best thing that he's ever made, but I think right now we're going to listen to it and be like, wow, this was a really great Eminem record. So that is what I'm hopeful for. And I think it was very smart to do all of this.
Right.
And you're going to tell me some things that go against everything I just said.
Well, no, I mean, my take on the song was I think it's an interesting take because, well, it's not an interesting take. It's an interesting song to put out because it's not a hit single.
It is not.
In no realm would this ever, which is strange because it will get played.
Yeah.
It'll get played because, and the whole idea of Eminem's relevance is a strange thing to talk about because Eminem, regardless of how quote unquote relevant he's been in terms of having hit songs or celebrated albums and this and that, he's a legend. He is a legend in hip hop music. So he's already kind of got this sort of deity-like status, no pun intended, but I talked about that on my music show, how that godlike status was sort of showcased in his lyrics. And listen, we all know he's a fantastic lyricist. We all know he's a very technically adept and proficient rapper, and he showcased that here. The interesting dynamic that he plays with in the song lyrically is that he is this sort of deity figure in the rap and hip-hop space, but he talks about who anoints somebody that. Is it the fans? Is it him? Is it the rap and hip hop community? But then he also, on another side, contrasts that idea by saying it's those same people that take it away. And the way the song is ended is fascinating by Beyonce's lyric. The hook on the song expands and it gets longer, and she talks about walking on water. Then she talks about if it's frozen over, but then she talks about falling through and being underwater, and it's also showcased on the artwork. Half of an audience is above the water and half of the audience is below the water.
Right.
It's very fascinating. It's the deepest I've ever gotten in lyrics on Sight and Sound.
Lyrics are nothing. Jay Williams.
Lyrics are nothing. The reaction to this song online has been essentially overwhelmingly negative.
Yeah.
My biggest criticism with Eminem overall, especially in his most recent work, is that his music has just been overtly bloated. The production has been bloated. too many bells and whistles, too much stuff going on. The run times are excessive, too many tracks, and way too wordy. Okay, we know you're a good lyricist. We know you're a good rapper. And this song shares that sentiment. I didn't mind the song. I didn't have a problem with it.
It's fine. Yeah.
Pitchfork pointed out, and I have my issues with Pitchfork, but they pointed out something that I couldn't help but agree with. Is they were pretty much like, do we really need another like ballad with a female hook? You
Right.
look at the Skylar Grey song, you look at the Rihanna song, it's just like the Dido song you pointed out, Stan. It's like we've done this many times.
Yeah.
And I think all the things that he talks about are fascinating, and I love that inner struggle that he plays with lyrically, because I'm interested in that. And those are the sort of dynamics that we get from people like a Kanye West and Jay-Z 444. But at the end of the day, his music, if he has an issue with being relevant, the thing that I've been the most critical with Eminem on is that his music isn't modern. Like, I need modern production. If this album does not have production from somebody like a Metro Boomin, like a Noah 40 Shabib, like just a plethora of other people out there who are fantastic producers, that's a problem. That's a big problem. You can't accept the world to you can't expect the world to accept what you're doing if it's not up to the standards of what people, unless he's just going on some crazy Kanye thing and is saying, I'm going to set the tone for the next 10 years of music.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So you think you're going to get into this? You think you're going to listen to it?
I'm going to listen.
We should definitely listen to it. Do
I
you
was
think
going to
you'll
listen
enjoy
to it regardless. He's my favorite rapper.
Yeah. Did you listen to Marshall Mathers LP2?
Since we've talked about it, no, I have not.
Have you listened to it before?
I'm too busy thinking about listening to Sturgill Simpson.
That's fair.
No, I have not heard it before.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I mean, even when that album came out, I couldn't think of like a worse thing to do. You're going to retread your old music.
I promise that I'm going to continue to think about listening to it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's take a break because I have to pee. I want to get something to drink. I need to stretch my leggies, and hopefully I don't get a nosebleed. Then we're going to get into a shit ton of movie talk.
And I do want to remind everyone that at the end of the show, it's a Mr. Robot segment. For those of you who are completely caught up, we're going to talk about the most recent episode. That's coming up later, but we're putting it at the end so that not everyone has to deal with that. So there you go.
All right, we'll be right back.
Have you ever listened along with Sight and Sound and thought to yourself, man, I would love to have these types of conversations with other like-minded individuals? Well, there's a place for that. Head over to Facebook and be sure to join the Sight and Sound Facebook group. It was started by our listeners to share their thoughts and opinions, react and comment on episodes and topics brought up on episodes. You could even interact with Ryan and myself. It is a fantastic community that we are proud of, and we think you should join it. We've even made it easy for you. Check out the link in the description box of this podcast and get involved with the Sight and Sound Facebook group today.
We lied. We still have another music topic to cover.
Yeah.
And we knew we were going, like, we decided to do it before we hit record.
Yeah.
And then we just forgot. And then here we are. Hashtag transparency. Let's talk about a band that means especially a lot to you, but it also means a lot to me as well because I'm a huge fan. Well, now I don't know. Of Brand New.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this news story came out the other day that all this sexual harassment stuff coming out, which is a good thing, obviously, and it's unfortunate that's taking place, but it's a good thing that's getting out there. We've talked about it a lot lately, and this one obviously hits close to home. But a news report came out that Jesse Lacey, the lead singer of Brand New, had some sexual harassment allegations against him made by a fan. This happened quite some time ago. I'd say probably, maybe close to a decade back when he was about 24, that he had, had some messages back and forth with like a 15-year-old. And it just wasn't a good look at all. But I think with this whole situation, I'm sure you were the same way. We just had the Louis C.K. thing as well. I think we were all kind of waiting, every one of us waiting for when is somebody that I'm a pretty diehard fan of, when is this going to happen with them? And I want to connect this with Chester Bennington passing away from Linkin Park, because we talked about how close that hit to home. You know, a lot of celebrities passing away and this and that. That one was real to us. This one is obviously real to me. Brand New is one of my favorite bands of all time. Their album, Deja Entendu, is my favorite album of all time. I have their stuff. I've seen them live, all this stuff. And I think this is a good time to bring up the topic of the concept of separating art from the artist. Not because I'm saying that we need to do that and everybody should be expected to do that. But I had an interaction with a listener talking about sort of struggling with that. And it's something that people have been doing for a long time. You know, you go all the way back to the Michael Jackson days and stuff going on with him and the allegations against him. I just think that it's an interesting perspective. Nobody is in the right or the wrong, I think, nobody should feel wrong for wanting or for struggling with this concept. Like, should I not be a fan? Should I be a fan? Whatever. I'm going through that myself right now, and I think everybody's going to have to cross that bridge at some point. But
I think this is absolutely an important conversation to have, and we've had versions of this on other episodes, but it continues to snowball in Hollywood right now,
Yeah.
and we're seeing it affect music, and we had an interesting conversation as well. Like, once this gets into music, I think it's going to explode even further because, you know, musicians are fucked up.
Well, and I mean, there's an age-old adage of sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Right. So this isn't going to be the last time we have this kind of conversation.
Right.
But again, everything with Louis C.K. and all this stuff, I pose this question even outside of our circle. I talked to Eric and Josh about it,
Right.
as well, because we were all big Louis C.K. fans, and so yeah, I want to talk about that because I think that hit close to home, particularly with you. I don't think you care about Brett Ratner, but you care if it's something like Brand New. So
Yeah, well, I told you off air when it happened. Like I've just said, I was anticipating something like this happening.
Sure.
Of course, I had no idea that it was going to be
So-
like this. But when it happened, when I got the news, it was weird because I was sort of numb to it, which I'm just telling people how what my reaction was. I'm not saying it's right. But this is becoming such a regular occurrence that I was kind of like, man, you know. But I sort of kind of moved on. And that's sort of where I'm at with it right now. And I think one of the discussions that we're having off air as well was this whole idea of maybe it's time for us to remove our idols and whatever people off their pedestal and stop holding people to these sort of whatever standards.
So what I'm dealing with now, and by the way, this conversation is continuous. There are people on Twitter that are already over the conversation we're about to have.
Right.
There are people with the attitude like, you need to stop figuring out like how you're going to deal with this as a person. You need to sympathize for all of the potential that we didn't get, all of the people that were put to the wayside so that these other monsters could, make whatever they wanted to make. Think about all the people that, because Brett Ratner got to do this, that meant so many other people were left out and lost opportunity.
Right.
Like, let's mourn those people. But it's like, I think this is still a very valid conversation to have as fans. How do we do this? And what I keep arriving at, similarly to their point, it's like, we need to have a talk. We need to talk about this so that we know where to show our support.
Well, yeah.
Like we need to openly embrace that, some of our idols are going to get brought down and they're going to be tore down, but you have to be willing and ready to be supportive of what comes next. And
Right.
whoever the next person to arrive in the upper echelon, whether it be Hollywood or popular music, and to just be willing to go wherever we're going, because it's not going away.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to wallow that there's never going to be any Kevin Spacey again. I'm going to be ready for what comes next. When it comes to dealing with our idols and how comfortable we are with revisiting albums, revisiting shows, things like that, I'm finding it. I haven't come up with my formula. I haven't come up with my, because there are different severities. Like with a few years ago, and this kind of happened outside of this window, the lead singer of Lost Prophets.
Yeah.
He did something that I don't even want to repeat.
Right.
If you want to look up what happened to him, Google Lost Prophets singer. This happened to maybe like 10 years ago, maybe not that long, but I don't even want to repeat it really. But when I heard that, I don't know that I've ever listened to them again. But what we have here is, we have some actors that are accused of rape,
right?
And I don't know where to go there. But then there's like something like Louis C.K., who just does something as gross as like masturbate in front of a woman.
Yeah, there's a spectrum, it seems.
There's a spectrum, and it's not a spectrum of good to bad. It's a spectrum of gross.
Right.
Like I'm not.
It's all bad.
I'm not. What's the big deal with what Louis C.K. did? That's not what I'm saying. I just think there's different severities. But it's all under the gross umbrella. So I haven't decided what my formula is, what I will accept, what I won't. Can I say that I'll never watch The Usual Suspects again? No.
Right.
Which is funny because that actually involves Bryan Singer, who's also under the. So, I mean, it's not like I'm trying to defend watching that movie, but.
Well, real quick, I want to make 2 quick points. One of the interesting things about the most 2 recent things that have come out that are sort of different from the rest of them, and it's becoming more normal now. I said this in a group text that we have, that I think now more than ever, one of the worst things that these people can do, who are being accused of these things and even found out, and who are perpetrators of these terrible acts, is to stay silent. I think 100% they should address it as quick as possible, regardless of what any sort of legal implications are. We saw Louis C.K. address it directly, and Jesse Lacey has since come out and owned up to it and sort of had his say, and that makes me more appreciative that these people are acknowledging the victims and acknowledging the fans and the people that are
but
doing
even
this.
Louis C.K.'s was kind of like it had elements of woe is me as well,
a little bit,
kind of I'm sorry I got caught kind of attitude,
right?
That people aren't really happy with that either,
right? I mean they're honest reactions. I think I'm not defending anybody, but I think if we're just looking at human beings, it's I understand that human reaction to it. It's a piece of shit, honestly. It's a shitty thing to do, and shitty people do shitty things. The other point that I wanted to make, to sort of isolate this brand new thing and where we start crossing interesting bridges. Had a Twitter interaction with this individual. I've already talked about that, but he brought up a point which I share with him, is that there's a big difference between moving forward and saying, oh, do I still watch this movie? Do I still listen to this album? Do I go and see this? I feel like that's an easier bridge to cross, of, do I do this moving forward? As Lay Dying is a band, when the singer of that band went to jail for trying to hire a hitman to kill his wife, I no longer could listen to the band. The difference with Brand New here, with myself and this other individual, and I'm sure so many other people, is this band put out albums that meant specific things to people. I've said it many times that Deja Entendu helped me get through high school. They've helped people with relationships, and the interaction that I had dealt with this individual using Brand New as a way to cope with suicide. And it's his question was, people are going to have to think to themselves, or they will think to themselves, I feel guilty for this happening now and having this attachment to this art. And I just told him, I said, look, regardless of what happened, no one can change how you felt about something at a specific moment in time and what your reaction to that was then. Nobody can take that away, and you shouldn't feel bad for what art did for you in that regard. That is when art goes into the ether, I think, and it goes out, and this is hooey-fooey, but it's sort of, I say it all the time. Once an artist releases an album, it no longer becomes theirs. You are as much of an owner of that as they are. Now, if you want to listen to and support them moving forward, that's to everybody else. But you should not feel bad for whatever helped you through a certain.
Well, usually in this particular case, you don't have to worry about supporting them moving forward,
exactly,
because these careers are going to get tanked.
Right.
So I don't have to think about, do I support Louis C.K. moving forward?
Maybe. I mean,
because he's toast.
I mean, that's easy to say now, man. But I mean, there's a lot of instances.
I think
of
that
very public things that have not done that.
I think that we are setting a new precedent. I mean, I have been fascinated with everything going on. I mean, just think about how it's one after another now, because so many more victims are feeling empowered and feeling more comfortable. And not that it isn't hard. I know that they're, going through tough times as well, but I think that they're feeling better about it. And I think that more people are open to listening to all of this. And I think I've just been fascinated, and they're setting a new precedent.
I mean, look at somebody like Dr. Dre. I mean, he
well, that's the unfortunate side of it is, I don't know, some of those, like Dr. Dre, something
beat
that
a
was
woman, yeah.
something that was public at one particular time. I don't know. I haven't seen us revisit those yet. Like, a lot of things that are being uncovered did happen years ago, like with Kevin Spacey, like Corey Feldman's talking a lot about things that happened in his past. Those are coming to light, and those are being investigated. But as far as the things that were already public, look at Donald Trump,
Roman Polanski. I mean, you saw somebody like Roman Polanski when he won his Oscar. You saw an entire room of people stand up and applaud him.
Yeah.
In the industry,
Harvey Weinstein is the most thanked person at the Oscars, statistically.
I mean, and that's another thing too. Is it's just like, I mean, it's baffling. Like, I just hope that this isn't, and I'm more or less just talking about this broader thing, and I hope that it's just not a flavor of the week thing.
Let me.
I want people. I think from now on, I think we should make this stand. From now on, these people should be held accountable for the things that they do moving forward. I don't want time to pass and look out at a room 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Like, for instance, just to go back to the Dr. Dre thing, that was revisited on the documentary that HBO put out. They talked about that.
Yeah.
Nobody's really saying shit about it. Like, are we just supposed to be like, oh, that's a thing that happened? I mean, I guess I don't know though. I don't know. It's an honest take. Like, I don't know. People should be forgiven, but I don't know. I don't know to what extent.
To speak to the person who tweeted at you, I think that, again, I don't think the part that hasn't gone away is separating art from artist. And we've talked about this before. I think we've talked about, it's just case by case. It's just how you feel. I mean, I don't. Without judgment, I'm asking you this question. Are you done with listening to brand new albums? Previous.
I mean, probably not. I mean, if I'm being completely honest with you about it. I mean, it's, first of all, there's more people. I mean, it's easier for me because lyrics aren't that big of a deal, but there's more people in that band besides him. And, and again, like, the art lives on in a greater idea, I think.
Right.
But everybody's going to have to, but it is a much different thing, I feel like, than like, will I be able to listen to Louis C.K. stand up again? I don't know.
And I asked Eric that question. Yeah. He said he was still willing to watch his stand up.
And that's fine. Like, everybody.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Really.
Everybody
I don't know.
Has their own thing. And I don't want people listening to this. or I hope people listening to this take this away from this whole conversation is let people do whatever they want to do with the art. Like, don't put people on blast for going back on stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine.
So I would say to him, just don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty because you don't have any control over that.
But it is very unfortunate that these people who are doing these things, that they're abusing this power. And I think, obviously, who knows if a celebrity ever stumbles upon this, but they need to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
With the quote unquote power that they have. Like, they have influence on so many other individuals out in the world. Like, when you sign up to play this game, you're affecting every single audience member that you do. And if you're not comfortable with that, then don't fucking play the game.
Right. Which sucks because you can have the attitude like, I never said that I wanted to be a hero. Or, there are some celebrities that have that attitude. They don't ask for the attention. But
then
there's
sit
also,
in your room, record your music, and just listen to it yourself.
Yeah. So my brand new was Bill Cosby.
Right.
I grew up loving The Cosby Show. Watched it every night. I still think to this day, top 5 sitcoms of all time for me.
Right.
I love that show. I learned a lot about comedy. I didn't really know anything about his stand-up, actually, but I cared very much about that show. I loved it. I've seen every episode a million times.
Yeah.
That was really hard because that show was off the air. So, like, even if I wanted to watch it, I can't.
Yeah.
But something like with Louis C.K. too, again, it's like you don't even have the opportunity to feel guilty for watching his shows because, I mean, they're done with Louis and he no longer benefits from the other shows that he produces. He's not making a dime. FX cut ties with him, I think it was today, and he's not going to make a dime from Better Things or Baskets ever again. And so I'm not going to feel guilty if I want to watch Better Things knowing that he created it because I no longer have to care. He's not going to make any more money from that.
Right.
And so I agree. Again, talking about they're more than just Jesse Lacey and Brand New. So,
and that's the other thing too. I think we need to.
You don't want to hurt the entire band for something that one person did.
That's the other thing. I'll throw out with this whole Brand New thing. I mean, I did an episode of Sight and Sound Music where I talked about what does Brand New having a #1 album do for rock music. Like, could major record labels and people, the gatekeepers, could they be looking at them having that spot and say, oh, this is a potential we could tap into? Could we be on the verge of a new rock music wave? And honestly, by him doing this, it heavily taints that. Like, people might, from now on, people are probably going to say, at least for like the next few years at least, they're going to say, oh, remember Brand New had the #1 album? No, all I remember is that he was one of the people that was wrapped up in this whole sexual allegations thing. So you kind of just fucked rock music too. A little bit. Great job, asshole. Let's talk about some movie stuff.
Okay. Let's get
Disney
into,
is a monopoly.
Let's get into yet again something that you're a fan of ends up kind of doing something pretty shitty. So I love Disney.
Oh yeah, you like that?
I do. I love Disney. I remember when people were like the conversation people are having about Fox, like Disneyfying Fox. Right. People had that conversation when they took over Star Wars. And,
of course they did.
We'll get to that here in a minute. But as far as like Disney doing something really shitty, it's this whole how they're handling the box office in their relationships with movie chains right now. So if you don't know, Disney decided to tell theaters, look, I think with Force Awakens, they were taking 64% of all ticket sales, and so they're taking it up a notch with The Last Jedi because they know that it's going to make a ton of money. So the deal that they put in place was they want to receive 65% of all ticket sales for this next movie, Last Jedi. They also can require theaters to hold the movie for 4 weeks. Like, they have to make that guarantee. So if they show in the biggest auditorium at any theater for a minimum of a month, even if on day 28, if everyone who's going to see it, even if it's an empty house, Like that, like week 4,
Right.
if no one is seeing The Last Jedi anymore and they decide, hey, I want to replace this with this movie, they can't do it.
Right.
Or Disney has a right to just put the kibosh on the whole thing. And so that's really affecting the smaller theaters.
Right.
And it's just an unprecedented market power. And they know that they can get away with it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, the smaller theaters don't, like, it's just like an impossible situation. Like, I can't imagine owning a smaller theater and either signing your life away for 4 weeks for this movie or not showing the biggest movie of the year at all. It sucks. It's an all or nothing thing. And it's just, I think it's bullshit because it's just pure greed. It's just pure greed.
I like my capitalism. I'm a big proponent. We talked about this. Disney has a right to do this. They have the power and the pull and the leverage to do something like this. When companies do things like this, what I look at is the consumer, right? Because those are the two ends of the spectrum. The companies have the power, but the consumers also have the power because they empower these companies by paying money. So how are they connected? How do they draw that line between them? If the consumers do not like what's going on, then they have to answer that call. The way this is affecting it, if they're raising their how much money they get from the tickets, that means less money for the theaters. And if that means less money than the theaters, do the theaters then accommodate that by raising their ticket prices? And if that's the case, that is when it is affecting the consumers. This whole game has been done with music. This is the consumers answer that by saying, okay, we don't have the fucking money to pay for your shitty movie tickets. That's when they answer things by saying, we'll steal it. We'll illegally download it. I don't think that's going to happen necessarily, but it is a very dangerous game they're playing.
So I don't think it is. I think they will suffer zero consequences because I know about this. You know about this now. The general casual populace has no fucking idea how that shit works, and they don't care.
Until the ticket prices go up.
Disney making this move, nobody knows that this is happening, and this is not going to stop a single person from seeing The Last Jedi.
Right. That movie in particular.
And so, and we don't know if Disney's going to continue this play. Right now, it's just it's a Star Wars thing. So there is I don't think there's any repercussion. It's not like
right.
I don't think the market, the way that it changed for music, it's not going to change for this.
It's not.
It's not the same. So what I hate about this is that it's just greedy, and I hate that.
It's not unless it sets a precedent for other things. Like, for instance, do they do a similar thing for Avengers Infinity War? Do they then do things for every Star Wars film? Do they do things for every MCU film?
But it's going to end up, I feel like it's going to end up kicking them in the ass, because if they ruin their relationships with theaters, then we're no longer going to pay for your fucking movies in theaters.
Well, not only that,
or maybe they're not worried about it because they're about to launch this streaming service.
And that's the other thing that goes along with this, the dangerous game. I mean, and again, the general audience doesn't realize this, but them going into that space is a detriment to the general audience, because it's, again, adding another service you're going to have to choose from, content exclusivity. But then, when they launch the Star Wars show, does the price go up? We just saw that with Stranger Things. It's just like, it is a dangerous game. And one way where you might not realize it, but things are affected by it, the diehard movie fan base that is going to go see these movies regardless, and I'm talking about diehard.
How you doing?
A lot of us want to see it in IMAX, RPX, whatever. If it's pretty expensive to go see those, those premium screens. If those go up, and I'm sure some of the casual fans, they see the allure. Maybe we only go see a Star Wars film because that's the big, the headlining name. Maybe we do splurge a little bit to go see the IMAX, but if those ticket prices are too out there, maybe a bunch of people all saying we'll just go to standard theaters instead. Maybe that cuts into it. I mean, those bottom dollar things, if a company that big, they pay attention to even the most minor of shifts in their bottom line.
I would just love to ask for, and this might be too utopian, I just want a little bit of fucking self-awareness.
Yeah.
You're fucking Disney.
Yeah.
You don't need to make those fucking moves. A day later, you're thinking about buying Fox. Like,
right.
How about a little bit of self-awareness? The fact that you don't need to do this.
I think
you've already made your money back from the Lucasfilm deal in general.
I think
Jesus.
I think from their perspective, their justification is probably if we can do these things, let's just say, if we can raise this money from these increased, increased prices, and we can buy up these properties, we're going to be able to give the fans better content, what they want. And I know that's hard to fathom because they're already doing, the best job maybe that's ever been done. It's just like,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe they're just going to hire like Christopher Nolan and Denny V to like direct every single movie that they do. That's what we expect. Because that's the other thing too. When you start doing things like that, our expectations rise. Well, you have more money than God. Like, maybe they're preparing for the Apple onslaught.
If there was any company that I would want to be a monopoly, it would be Disney. I just really like their company.
I mean,
everything that they're responsible for.
I mean, do you want to transition over into that talk right now?
I wanted to talk about what I think is arguably a shittier move by Disney.
Okay.
So I think every single thing that we talk about here with movies is going to be Disney. We have like 5 Disney stories that we have to cover. This next one is the Los Angeles Times ban. And so basically what happened was Los Angeles Times put out a report earlier in the year that, and I don't know a whole lot about their initial report, but they reported on Disneyland's tense relationship with the city of Anaheim that is apparently going on, and Disney didn't care for it. They thought it was an unfair reporting from the media, and they banned the Los Angeles Times from all of their screenings.
Right.
Disney and Hollywood, even going back to this sexual assault stuff, they're supposed to be, or they want to be, the liberal ideal. They want the country to follow suit with their beliefs. This was the most Trump thing I've ever heard from, aside from the sexual assault. This is an attack on free press. Just because you didn't like a fucking story that came out, you ban. So immediately, of course, this backfired. And it's already been resolved, but it was so shitty. And it was like, you're supposed to be Bob Iger, whether Bob Iger was personally responsible for this or not. You're supposed to be the anti-Trump, the liberal side of America. And you are contributing to this idea that the press is the enemy. But it's the shittiest thing in the world and the most anti-American thing possible. And shame on them for not knowing this, because it was literally what a lot of liberals have a problem with, how Trump is handling the media. And it's just like, you just did the exact same thing. I mean, at least this has already been resolved, because, and they came out and kind of gave like a shitty excuse as to whatever, but it is resolved because the people spoke, and so many other press outlets came to defend the Los Angeles Times. Said, look, we're not going to go see your movies either. Then.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about your movies if you're going to shit on us like this.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was the most backwards thing that Disney could possibly do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually don't have a huge problem with the banning of press in general, as long as it's justified for doing it. Unfortunately, I don't have enough information to make that call with this. But I do get it from a certain perspective, because I do think we have this romantic idea of press. I actually think the press in general is actually kind of awful in this country. I think it's 100% terrible. I think every single person has agendas and backhanded agendas. I mean, you can only look so far as what Fox News reports, but yet the same company puts out a show.
I mean,
like Family Guy, and it's just like,
I agree that we need to take money out of the news.
well, it's also incredibly, it's not representative of what we enjoy or not enjoy. It's not representative of what the idea of news reporting is as a whole. And I think that this is just a greater conversation about news. Obviously, the constant fear mongering with news and what they do decide to report, what they don't decide to report. So I've never really had an issue with banning of press by companies, because I get it. I get why that is, because sometimes, Anthony Fantano just had the most ridiculous, oh my God, what's going on with him and Fader, which is a pretty big music press.
Thinking about like how Trump makes the American people go against the press. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, but in his mind, regardless, he's obviously a psychopath, but so it's sort of an outlier example. But in his mind, he thinks he's right. In the same way that somebody that you might agree with could ban the press and you could see it as justifiable. Do you think that this is obviously a whatever statement, but Fox News, somebody that you don't agree with, if they were just completely reporting outright lies about a candidate that you like,
you're right, and Fox News is terrible,
right? So it's just, but to so many people, a majority of maybe not a majority of Americans, but the people that voted for the president that we have think that they're the greatest news company ever. It's just again, the romantic idea of what press is, I think can be backed off of. But for this conversation, specifically for the Disney thing, Disney in general should have no business in banning press. Like, even though I get why companies do it, Disney of all people, because of how powerful they are, because of how much money they have. Imagine if this just goes to show Disney's a big company, right?
Fuck yeah.
Apple is a way bigger company, and they would never do anything like this, because so many people use their products. To have a bad thing of press. Remember when all that shit was going on about, like, the FBI wanted them to unlock phones because of terrorism, and they was like, we literally can't do that. We can do that, but we refuse to do that, even though it was going to battle terrorism. It was an interesting thing, and it's just like Disney, you're making fucking movies. Chill the hell out.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't, not only did that reporting probably not touch anything, it also just didn't
stick to building roller coasters and making Mickey Mouse movies.
It also just didn't do anything to ban them. Like, it only made them look foolish.
Right. Yeah, it's not like we're giving away national security stuff. So, again, this overall conversation that we're having, I did just want to bring up just my thoughts on the press and all that stuff. But to go down to the core,
I don't know if the press should be controlled, because then it's North Korea.
Well, the press should be controlled by the people. Really. The people. It's supposed to be a checks and balances system for the people.
Yes,
and that's just not.
That's not what I meant.
Right.
I'm talking about it doesn't need to come from. It doesn't need to suit the government's needs and wants,
or business, or private sector in general.
But anyway, let's talk about something that could be potentially shitty. The Disney Fox deal. So
It's not a monopoly, and it has nothing to do with a monopoly.
Here's what I want to talk
driving me crazy.
I think that anything that's labeled Disney
Yeah.
a Mickey Mouse cartoon. Anything that is labeled Disney is quote unquote Disney-fied. Star Wars
Right.
is Lucasfilm. They're not children's movies.
Yeah.
Can kids watch Star Wars? Absolutely. Kids grew up on Star Wars. Do we call Star Wars kids movies? Absolutely not. It's the most anticipated movie of the year for us in our late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
It's like they're not kids movies. People forgot Disney bought Lucasfilm. Marvel movies aren't kids movies. I mean, some people call them that. That's making fun of them. But they're not. Most people don't remember or realize Disney owned Miramax, the studio in the 90s that helped make Quentin Tarantino, Harvey Weinstein, all that. Disney owned Miramax. That Miramax is no more. Went bankrupt, I believe. Just because Disney is buying something doesn't mean it gets Disney-fied. Pirates of the Caribbean, those are Disney movies.
Yeah.
They weren't kids' movies per se. In the way that Frozen
they're
is
not
kids'
whimsical.
Movie. The way
actually, Pirates of the Caribbean are kind of whimsical.
There's some whimsy.
But you know what I mean.
I'm just saying, like, if something is labeled Disney, then it's probably Disney-fied or neutered. But there are plenty of examples in front of us to make us fear not, essentially. Netflix, Marvel, everything that they're doing. It's like, just because they're doing this, now, do I want... It's valid to be afraid and not know, because something like Fantastic Four could come into the MCU and just as easily have the tone of Spider-Man Homecoming.
Wolverine in the Avengers. Like he should have always been.
Here's what I hope happens. If this goes through, here's what I hope happens. If Disney touches any Fox franchise like Alien, Ridley Scott's done with Alien, by the way. I have the good news for you.
Amazing.
If Disney
overrated franchise.
If Disney touches 24, if it touches Alien, if it touches Apes, I hope
that 24 being thrown around. I was like, nobody cares about 24.
It's just an example. Something that's already.
Please.
I hope that I still would imagine that it has the Fox banner. Like, Disney will own Fox in the way that it owns Miramax, the way that it owns Lucasfilm. But those movies open with that banner. So it's still, even though Disney owns the Fox property, I still think the presentation will be the exact same.
Disney films don't open Marvel movies, do they? Or like the big Disney castle? I don't think it does.
They don't.
It does for Star Wars, though, doesn't it?
No.
It doesn't? I thought I remember seeing it.
It's just Lucasfilm. It might at like the end or something.
Have you ever seen Star Wars?
But so it doesn't do that. It's so. I mean, that's the case all over Hollywood. I mean, so many studios own other side things that you don't think of. So it's not an uncommon thing.
Right.
But, I mean, it's a valid concern because, again, like I said, people want the Fantastic Four to become a Marvel thing. But you have Deadpool, and even like Ryan Reynolds has come out and said, I'm not interested in a Disney Deadpool.
Right.
I just don't think
Logan,
I just don't think it's going to be the case. I think people just are forgetting how Hollywood actually works. There are so many other examples of this that I don't think we need to be afraid. But if this sounds hypocritical, I mean, it's valid. Again, it's valid to be concerned because there are those things that will become Disney-fied, will become Marvel-fied.
I mean, the thing when this was all going on and being discussed, the crossroads I was sort of coming at was, would I agree with you. Like, I think the likelihood of the whole Disneyfication of things is sort of just silly. But I was asking myself, if I had to choose between no longer getting a movie like Deadpool or a movie like Logan, if I could still have all these, if I could have X-Men finally done, in my opinion, properly. Listen, First Class was great. But
it's one of my favorite superhero movies.
I think X-Men in general could just be done way better under Kevin Feige. Not sorry. Would I rather have that to sacrifice a movie like Logan and Deadpool?
Kevin
Honestly?
Feige, Kevin Feige started out on those X-Men movies, the originals.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. That's great. Fantastic. But
so you already got Kevin Feige X-Men.
But you know what I mean. I want Wolverine versus Hulk. But regardless, I think I'm fine. Look, Logan was great. It's in our memory books. I'm fine sacrificing those things if it means that. That's me. Personally.
I think the money talks though. Like I think it would be
absolutely.
I think it'd be a poor business decision to change Deadpool.
Yeah.
Like I think Disney knows better. Like they just it just wouldn't have the Disney castle to lead the film. But I that's why I don't think it's something that we should be that afraid about, because Disney will make Deadpool the way that people want Deadpool.
And it's such a big cast of characters that they're pulling in. There's no reason why they can't isolate certain characters for certain properties.
I'd be curious as if they had two Wolverines running around, because if they take Fox, that means that they have two Quicksilvers. They literally own two Quicksilvers, right? Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Unless they just
it's like
I feel like if they bought this, and if this does end up going through, which I think it probably will, just because if they show an interest.
They just reported it's not over yet.
I know, but regardless,
no, I'm saying that to help. Like this isn't done. Like it could still very well happen.
I think that, man, just get rid of all the shit. Just erase it all. You already retconned half, 30 years of Star Wars stuff. It's just like, it's fine. Just retcon all that stuff. And listen, here's one other thing I want to bring up. I have to bring this up real quick. Back when we were talking about this whole Spider-Man, could Disney ever buy Spider-Man from Sony? People were talking like I was crazy. And I'm like, dude, all it takes is some Disney money. Just that is now becoming way more of a reality.
No, that in question was, would Sony ever do it?
Right.
The point was Sony would never be stupid enough to sell one of their biggest properties.
Right.
And that's exactly what Rob Liefeld is talking about.
Yeah.
He came out and was like, Fox, you have your Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. You just don't, you can argue whether they have it fully realized yet, but it's like Rob Liefeld came out.
I think what they're doing at Fox with X-Men stuff is fantastic right now.
Exactly.
I think it's great.
But, and again, that's what I think is in question, is that I don't think that's going to stop. Like, I still think we're going to think it's Fox, even though Disney owns it. But I mean, it's a valid point too. Rob Liefeld says, like, you have your Bond, you have your Marvel already with X-Men. Why do you feel the need to take it to? They've seen tremendous success this year. Fox has with Apes and Logan. I mean, I just don't know what I don't know.
The company's pivoting, right?
I don't know where
to focus more on television and news reporting and sports. That's what it was reported, that they see that as their more fundamental wheelhouse. Which I don't know why. Fox Sports is trash.
I don't know why. Fox Sports is not.
It's trash. They spent so much money bringing those people over from ESPN.
Exactly what ESPN did.
And offer nothing new.
They literally
took
the same fucking people at ESPN.
And their president's a trash bag too. He was hit with some, I don't know if it was harassment stuff, but it was.
Yeah.
But I do want to address one thing real quick with this whole thing. This idea was being thrown around, monopoly this, monopoly that. Listen, I'm not fully well-versed on corporate law, but this notion of Disney, because I even remember Schnepp, God love him, talking about like Ma Bell back with the telecommunications industry when the phone systems were going through all their monopoly stuff. Disney buying property has nothing to do with them becoming a monopoly. If they were buying movie theaters, if they were buying whole production companies up, their competition is one thing. Just buying properties, no
one shouts monopoly when Disney already owns Marvel and Pixar and then buys Lucasfilm. But no one was concerned about
properties are just things that you can buy and sell. It's not.
They're like hotcakes.
If you take a property from Fox, or let's say they take Spider-Man from Sony, if Sony wanted to, they could just come up with their own comic book character. Now, I know that that's a much harder, it's easier said than done, but monopolies are typically only instituted when you are legitimately making it impossible for people to compete with you.
It's not the entire market.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
They're not like if they
Apple-
bought Warner Brothers and DC, that's when we have to say, "Ooh, this is getting a little
Right.
strange."
Right.
I'm talking all of Warner Brothers.
Right. That just Disney taking Fox's properties doesn't mean Fox can't make movies anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it would but Fox can't be a company anymore.
Exactly.
Especially if if they're the ones saying we want to move away from this. If Fox is going to be politics and sports,
Yes.
then
If Disney bought Netflix and Hulu, or
Disney should buy Netflix.
or Apple bought Spotify and Tidal, that's when we're talking about those things.
Right.
But property, that would be like a car company. It would be like Ford going to Honda and saying, I want the Civic. Okay, take the Civic. We'll just make something else.
Make another car, yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's stop the monopoly talk.
I think there's not as much to fear. I mean, it's certainly valid for discussion.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I just don't have that big of a problem.
It's
with
interesting times. I mean, anytime big properties like this change hands, it's
I don't have a
interesting.
problem with the sale, but it's more of like a wait and see game and how they actually handle it. Then I'll have a problem with it. But then they'll know about it too.
Let's go ahead and buy DC Warner Brothers, please. Save poor Ben over there. Go ahead and buy Jurassic Park while you're at it. And Harry Potter. Just do it.
Let's take a pee break, and then we've got a couple more movie topics, and then Mr. Robot.
Okay, sounds good. We'll be right back.
The Sight and Sound YouTube page is the place to be. We always appreciate you checking out all the content we put out here on our podcast feed, but there is a ton of supplementary content in addition to what we talk about here. I'm over there doing album reviews for all the latest album releases. Ryan has you covered with movie news, reactions, and reviews. And from time to time, we even do television reactions in addition to original content that honestly is just meant to entertain you. Go to the description box of this podcast, click the link for the YouTube channel, and subscribe for even more Sight and Sound goodness.
Okay. Is it going?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Did you have a good pee?
Yeah, it was a good pee.
Smells weird in here.
What'd you think of Thor Ragnarok?
I thought it was good. That was a good movie. Yeah.
You're right there. That description doesn't say A to me. You gave it an A.
Yeah.
Right? Or did you give it an A minus?
I've thought about it a little bit more. It's definitely an A minus.
Okay.
For sure.
So when you elaborate on the A minus, it was fine. What?
Listen, it was a funny movie. It was an entertaining movie. It was a beautiful movie. I thought it was shot really well. Story was fine. Look, at the end of the day, all I expect out of Marvel movies is for them to be entertaining, and that's exactly what it was. I don't know any Marvel movie I've ever seen that I could ever potentially give an A+ to. Just doesn't exist. Sorry. It just doesn't hit that level for me. But I think the acting was really, really good. I think Taika Waititi is a star in the making for film just in general. I do not welcome him to the MCU. I don't think he has a place for the greater overall story if he wants to go make some weird standalone things.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah. What, my statement?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's valid. I think Kevin Feige's very happy with Taika.
Absolutely.
But
as he should be.
I want...
if he wants...
can still work within Disney.
Yeah, if he wants to make... Listen, one of the reasons why Guardians of the Galaxy works so well is because it's so far away from what's going on Earth.
Yeah.
And that's why this worked as well. But, I also don't see how the tone of the film itself can play into the rest of what's going on. But
I agree.
It's a really, really good movie.
I mean, the next up is going to be unlike anything that we've seen from Marvel.
Yeah, it is a really good movie, though.
Which
I
is
had
funny.
a great time in the theater.
I thought that it was very smart for Marvel to utilize Chris Hemsworth as a comedian because he's secretly been funny for the past few years now. And so for him to, and he's always done a little bit of that. In the first Thor movie, they got to play up the sort of fish out of water moments. So there was a lot of funny moments with Thor towards the beginning, but he kind of became a more serious character over time, and so it's funny, and a lot of people were talking about it. It's funny to look at that weird ass trilogy.
Yeah.
Because it has no business belonging to the other Thor or other two movies.
What a strange experience that would be, just to like be like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna watch the Thor films.
Yeah,
and you get to that last one, and it's so different.
I'm still not ready to say it's my favorite though. Like I still really appreciate the first movie. I think the first one looks really great.
Never saw him.
But I enjoy a lot, both very much. Hela is one of the best MCU villains, which doesn't say a whole lot.
Right. Low bar.
I'm glad that there was a more personal connection, and that's all I'll say. I don't want to go into too many heavy spoilers, but she still disappointed me because I assumed that we were going to get more because it was Cate Blanchett, whereas Ant-Man is Corey Stoll, or even Thor 2 was Christopher Eccleston from The Leftovers. It's like you just don't. Sometimes you don't know what to expect, and then other times you get Cate Blanchett and you think, oh, this is going to easily be. And plus, all the ways that she could have fit into Infinity War. I don't know. I just feel like there was always more potential there, but ultimately she was lacking. Every fight scene she had, it was rubber. I mean, it was just, it wasn't that great. But at least she just straight up murdered people, though. That was interesting to me. But anyway, I enjoyed it very much. I thought it was the best that Loki's ever been, because I haven't actually been that big of a fan of him in general, even though people hold him in such high regard.
Yeah, I never really got that. It's just, he's
there,
eccentric character.
He's there. Hulk was great.
Yep,
had a lot of fun with him. So yeah, I mean, it's exactly what everyone else is saying. I don't think it's the best Marvel movie. Again,
who is saying that?
I'm wondering.
Has someone said that?
Well, Rotten Tomatoes. They're
just
making
the consensus.
it a big deal because it's so high. But I don't think that. And again, I depending on what day you ask me, I might want to watch the first Thor before this one. But anyway, I thought it was well done, and I thought they did a great job. So
yeah.
So Disney and Star Wars. It's not even
more Disney.
It's not even Last Jedi news. Rian Johnson is getting to sort of godfather a trilogy, and he's going to make the first entry. And they also announced the TV series, and so we kind of teased the digital streaming side of it earlier, but I don't know, which one do you want to tackle first, the TV series or the movies? Or
I think the movies are going to be the easiest to sort of dig through a little bit, because so much is unknown about the TV series outside of the one that was developed previously under George Lucas's helm. But listen, I find the timing of this incredibly strange a little bit. I mean, figured it would have been nice to sort of be like a nice little bow on it. If The Last Jedi comes out and it's fantastic and people are riding high on Rian Johnson, and they say, and then we got this. It's so hard to fathom.
Think about it. Does this make The Last Jedi look even better?
No, not to me. I mean, it
I don't know.
All it does for me is it reinforces what they've already been saying. The only thing we really know. What was that noise?
I have no fucking idea.
The only thing that we know about The Last Jedi really is that
it's good.
Is it Star Wars, or I'm sorry, is that Kathleen Kennedy has a lot of faith in Rian Johnson, and they had such a fantastic job working
She made
together.
this like a whole, she said that this was one of the best times of her career working with Rian Johnson. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially because, her and JJ were already so close.
Well, I think the most exciting thing about it, what we can take away from it, despite not having seen The Last Jedi yet, is the fact that Rian Johnson is a very interesting director. That's why we are already excited about this. That's why it's so promising. Is that he's so different and unique to what Star Wars has already done.
Yeah,
that's what's exciting about it. There are no reports about what this is going to be. There's a lot of speculation, and it's almost at least from what I've seen from Christian and Jedi Council and a lot of other people online, a lot of other people are saying is they're calling for Knights of the Old Republic, and I get it. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting idea. I have zero my chances. I'm going to give a percentage on it being Knights of the Old Republic. I'm going to say it is 30% or below. It doesn't seem like something that Rian Johnson would want to do. I can't fathom that sort of look and style, this big grandiose battle sequences and scenes. And I also think that by them going that far back in Star Wars would be very confusing for the, this newer fan base that will probably want to see more from this existing trilogy. I just don't think it makes any sense.
I'm not gonna go there as far as like, well, I mean, I guess if your point is contesting the intelligence of the audience or just the desire of the audience.
The desire primarily.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't have a problem with them doing something that people won't understand, like a chance, and so. But anyway, and I would love to see something from that era, but it also just doesn't have to be what we know of as Knights of the Old Republic. It can still take place in the fucking Clone Wars. Like it can still do that, but
that was the other point I was going to make. I'm sorry. There was one other thing about that is that I feel like with Rian Johnson having the ability to write the script for all three of these, why would he not want to take a brand new approach? Why would he want to retread on old ground?
That's just and that's just the confusion of using the term that has become Knights of the Old Republic, because when you say that, some people are speaking to it literally,
right,
as to what we've already had with Knights of the Old Republic, and
some
people use that as just a general term of an era.
That era.
So depending on the person, it means something completely different. So am I able to agree with you that I don't want the Knights of the Old Republic? No, because I'm taking it as more of just an era term thing.
Yeah,
not.
I would love to see it.
Not something that's already been done, and we're just actually realizing it on screen, bringing something, something literal from Legends into the.
If you were Rian Johnson, and you've already had the opportunity to write Star Wars history. If you had the ability to do an entire trilogy and cement your place, you get to decide where this goes, obviously with other people involved. But wouldn't you want to write that?
100%. I would want it to be something completely fresh.
Exactly.
And new. Yeah.
And that's the other funny thing too, with J.J. Abrams directing episode 9. It's like everybody's talking about new and fresh, but then we want to go back further. I don't like living in the past, even in fantasy world. Just don't.
I love Rian Johnson as a filmmaker. I'm freaking out about The Last Jedi. There's two sides of it. If I wanted this to happen to anybody, it would be Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
I can understand and I haven't even heard this yet. To my knowledge, I don't know if anybody's complaining about this, but one could make the argument, I want to see other filmmakers involved in Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy said that there will be 100% a female director on Star Wars under her reign. So
Ava DuVernay has obviously been touted there. Yeah.
There's that argument. I could see someone making get some fresh blood in there, but at the same time, if it was going to be anybody, it would be Rian Johnson. And I just love the idea that maybe it was cool for him to come in and make something, because this is clearly his film. I mean, he probably got to have a ball. This was his sandbox, but it's an even bigger sandbox,
right?
With some more toys. If he's able to, he is creating. Maybe that's. Look, Kathleen Kennedy saw the potential. Look what he created out of JJ's design.
Right.
Imagine, I would have loved to have heard some of those conversations as to what else he could do and how he would just, pirate a new trilogy. That's insane to me. I just think that's so cool.
I would love to see a much smaller story out of it, because Rian Johnson's good at telling those stories. You look at a Looper, you look at even a Brothers Bloom, or the stuff he's done with Breaking Bad. Such insular one-on-one stories, and we've heard that about The Last Jedi, that it's a character film, that it's about the individuals, but he's working with an ensemble, a bigger cast. I would love for Star Wars to get smaller. And Knights of the Old Republic, maybe, I mean, from what we know of it, it's the opposite of that. It's very grandiose.
Yeah. I think something that fans have been wrestling with for a while now is, there's that argument that Star Wars needs to be different. They need to,
right?
They have this open universe. You need to expand the universe, not make a solo movie. And I'm getting to the point where my argument is, they know that.
Right.
They're doing both. It's like, yes, their second standalone movie was a Han Solo movie, but the neighboring film is probably something that's going to be wild, the most crazy, epic Star Wars film to date.
Right.
It's like 6 months apart, you're getting two very different films from Star Wars. And it's like, they're just doing both. And the people that were so concerned about the next, people that are arguing, well, the next one after Solo should be Kenobi. This trilogy is something else entirely.
Yeah.
So I'm getting to the point where I'm over the Star Wars needs to expand the universe. They are. It's been 2 years. It's been 2 years.
I agree.
Look at what they're doing with Battlefront. They're doing both. And I'm very fine with that. I'm very happy with that. So I'm over that argument entirely. That's done. It's out the window.
Do you think, two things real quick. First of all, this is the best conversation about Star Wars that exists on the internet right now. This is the best conversation that exists about this news topic.
We're very good.
We are. Do you think that by the end of this current trilogy, we will have any insight on what could potentially be in the future for this storyline?
I don't think
that's exciting to think about.
Yes, the potential. Something that I was going to say to you a second ago.
That the end of this trilogy could be the end of Empire Strikes Back, for instance. I mean, I want a bookend, obviously, on it. I want things to be wrapped up, but the sort of anticipation of Han Solo getting frozen into carbonite, the anticipation of Luke, I am your father, that next step.
What I like and I expect is his trilogy will have known characters in it. 100%. I think that's something they love to do throughout canon. They're getting better at interweaving different characters. We saw Saw Gerrera realized in Rogue One in live action. So there's no doubt in my mind his new trilogy could have a scene with Rey. I mean, that's absolutely possible,
right,
and would make absolute sense. And that actually just goes to something that Kathleen Kennedy said in that exclusive interview that she had on Star Wars Show. She talked about the future of these characters. Like, in the next 10 years, where is Poe Dameron? So those characters were included in this, what does the future hold for Star Wars? So I think that's absolutely possible, which will also be fun to see how, to see some of these characters come in and out of a story that isn't mainly about them. I think that'd be really cool, too. I'm just excited, man. I mean, we don't know a whole lot, obviously, so we can only go so many places here. But I just think it's cool. And again, I think
agreed.
I think more than anything, it should shut everybody up. Just, hey, chill out. They're doing plenty of interesting stuff over at Lucasfilm.
It's just funny that a week ago we're looking forward to The Last Jedi, but if you really think about it, you can get kind of stressed out. Like, we look at these gaps between Star Wars films and how long is it going to be? When will we even find out where they're going? And to just have this news dropped on you and literally have that sort of anticipation is wild, and it's crazy. And it's, I think, a full realization that we are in the MCUification of Star Wars. It's real.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever going to be a time gap between Star Wars films ever. And I know that, someone like Christian has speculated, maybe there's 3 years between trilogies. Yeah, I don't think ever once thought that.
That's the modern movie landscape right now.
It's unacceptable.
And it's also it's also funny when they bring up things like Star Wars. They're already talking about, will we have Star Wars fatigue?
No.
We haven't had enough Star Wars films in order for us to even be considering that.
Yeah.
There might be a lot of content out there for the diehard fans, but we've only had
we were talking about
films.
We were talking about superhero fatigue 10 films deep, maybe, in the MCU.
Exactly. Yeah. And just because we're covering it under this microscope that we cover movies, I think it's a little bit silly. People need to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
It's only being generated from the diehard fan groups anyways that are only going to go see those films.
Right. So the TV series. So again, not a whole lot we know right now, other than fans have been wanting a live action series for so many years. George Lucas developed some. He has like several dozen scripts that are already written, and I would be totally fine if they wanted to adapt those even. Not literally. I mean, they can recycle. I mean, they're there.
I have a theory about this TV show, by the way.
They're there. They can do what they can either. If the scripts are good, they can either use them or take their ideas. I mean, that's great. But they also they don't have to be beholden to that. But I think that the Knights of the Old Republic thing is going to be a TV series. To fall in line with what you were kind of going for, I think it makes more sense, and I think that if Rian Johnson is going to do his own thing, whatever's on television needs to be different than what's happening in the movies.
Okay.
I mean, look at Marvel. Like, there's no way, there's not going to be a Netflix series that is any more expensive than what they already do. Because if they're making movie quality product to compete, that there's not a reason to go see the movie if you have it on screen. And that's something that people have been talking about with DC. Like, people were wondering, like, it's getting to a point where you have the Flash on television as well. Maybe that hurts, whatever. And you can debate that all you want, but I happen to believe that they won't, whatever they're doing on the big screen, they're going to do something different, something for TV. And I'm not saying they can't do a Game of Thrones. That's exactly what I think they will do. They will come up with their Game of Thrones. And I think Knights of the Old Republic is that. And that's the common thought. And
Right.
I totally agree with it. And I think that's just what I would want in a Game of Thrones less world. I also think it makes the most sense when it comes to promoting. I mean, feel like they want to make a splash. They're not going to start the Disney streaming series with their own Atypical.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be big because they want to
What a
promote
random
that service.
pull.
I was just trying to think
It's
some
just kind
random
of funny that
Netflix
that's what you
show.
chose.
I feel like to promote that new streaming series, they're going to have one of the biggest shows on TV to launch that. And I just think all roads lead there. We talk about how different it is to discuss music streaming services and movies and television. And I've done a lot of flip-flopping on my thoughts on this. Do I like the idea of another company making another app? No. But this news right here sold me on the app.
Right.
And I'm willing to cut my Hulu if it means getting this. Disney, again, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Disney. If all of their stuff is going there, they have my money.
Right. I have 2 points with this. The first point is it is hard for me to fathom Star Wars on TV live action because honestly, for me, what Star Wars has done over the years represents what movies, the spectacle of movies on the big screen. So it's hard for me to witness, like, are we going to get to see a space battle? You know what I'm saying? In a TV series. And it's just like, it's crazy to think about. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Definitely season finale.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And I want to incorrect, or I want to correct or incorrect with what I'm about to say. This currently has no one attached to this.
Correct.
I have a theory for somebody who's already in development for this.
I'm sure. I think that's everybody's
No,
theory.
I have names. I think I know exactly who's developing this as we speak.
I know. I think that's what everybody thinks. What you're about to say.
The person?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's what's his name?
Dave Filoni?
I do not think it's Dave Filoni.
I thought you were just gonna go there, and I was like, yeah, that's.
I'm about to pull a wild card. There is somebody involved in television who's already has a show and is already developing a show or developing something else beyond what they're doing. And when I found out this news, I thought to myself, that's crazy. They're developing something when they already have something else that they're so invested in and wrapped up in. And I thought, after this news broke, I thought, what could take this person away from their project that they're already working on? And it makes sense because this person's name has already been attached with Star Wars rumors. And that person is Sam Esmail working on this. He's working on a project right now with Andy Greenwald. Did you know that?
Oh, right.
And
you think Esmail and Andrew Greenwald are doing Star Wars?
I think because I have no idea what the fuck could possibly take Sam Esmail away from Mr. Robot. Would I like this? No, I wouldn't. But you have to admit, it does make some sense. Sam Esmail is the closest thing to Rian Johnson, at least cinematically speaking, that's on TV. He has an award-winning show. It's pushing boundaries. He's already a Star Wars fan. He's talked about how he wants his show to be like, oh, this is the Empire Strikes Back of Mr. Robot. And he does have ties somehow, I don't remember exactly how, to the Star Wars family.
I feel like I feel like it's not Greenwald's genre. And I know that that's silly knowing what, I mean, I don't know how much of him was in Legion, but I don't know. I
think the only reason that Andy Greenwald would even be attached to that, and first of all, let me just say, what I'm saying right now is, this if this was right, I would be like, give me a job at Collider right now. How did I put these pieces together?
I certainly wasn't going there because I never thought that.
Oh, this is a pull from.
I didn't even think Esmail was a lock for Obi-Wan. I just thought that was a total rumor. Maybe he met with them in general just to talk, but I don't think
that his tie to that was somebody via his marriage was somehow related, and I don't know. But regardless, it's funny.
I don't know.
It's funny to think about. It's funny to. It's just hilarious because I think that's terrifying for you, and it should be terrifying for people because Sam Esmail doesn't believe in plot. We're going to talk about him in just a few minutes.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, you got anything else for this TV show? Who are some names of some people in the TV? I know Dave Filoni is grade A prime choice meat 100%. The
I would love.
That's who you place your bets on.
I think this could happen. I would love JJ to produce.
I agree 100%.
I don't know if he would show run. I don't think he would ever do that. I mean,
give it to
Filoni and JJ could produce.
I was gonna say our boy, what's his name? Damon Lindelof.
He's doing
Cuse.
Watchmen.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Oh, Carlton Cuse?
Both of them.
That would be interesting.
Just give it to both of them.
Carlton Cuse and Dave Filoni?
No, and Damon Lindelof. What the hell's wrong with you?
I don't think. No, I don't think.
What's that guy that did the guy that did Iron Fist? He could do it.
So anyway, JJ could produce his Bad Robot being attached or whatever. I would love that. God, I would love it so much.
Has Brad Bird done TV? I just knew he ran around with that Bad Robot crew.
I feel like he probably. I wonder if he like randomly directed some show's pilot or something. I'm not sure.
Hey, you know who else could do this? I'm forgetting his name. What's his name? That did Friday Night Lights.
No.
What's his name?
Peter Berg. He's too caught up in Americana stuff right now. Okay, so anyway.
He did help out with Leftovers.
All right, let's talk about Mr. Robot.
All right. So if you're just joining us on the separate episode, we broke this out from.
We don't have to. I mean, I guess we can.
Yeah, no, it's gonna happen. You got to keep it. It's already been established.
Okay,
it's gonna be a separate episode too. Let's talk about this Mr. Robot episode where honestly, there's not a lot to talk about.
There's not.
I feel like a lot of time is going to be spent on just the execution. You told me, I didn't know this because I don't watch it on TV, that this ran commercial free.
Yes.
This
hold on.
Okay.
We got to do a little bit more of a setup because this will be a separate podcast. So yeah, This is us talking about Mr. Robot. We're talking about the latest episode. Was it episode 5?
5.
Because the last show we did was 3 and 4. Okay. This is episode 5. We're going to be talking about the episode and spoiling the show, what have you. So if you're not even watching the show or caught up, why are you here? Yeah, I agree. It's mostly technical. I think that this is going to take 10 minutes. Probably.
Maybe.
But we could talk about what this means for the rest of the show. But I think that again, this continues to be a really fun season.
It is.
Watch. And there are some times I think
it's already beaten season 2. Like
yeah.
It could drop off a cliff tomorrow and I'd be like, yeah, season 3 is pretty good.
Yeah. And I totally agree. Sometimes though, I get more confused. Like sometimes I'm just watching the show and I'm thinking, I don't remember what's going on. And maybe this is because I didn't rewatch season 2.
Right.
Or maybe it's just I've missed some key information.
What part in particular has you confused?
I think it's hard for me to remember who's working with who. And I think
it's supposed to be that way.
Huh?
I think it's supposed to be that way.
Well, they stated it clearly in this episode. Some of the dialogue was, Angela's working with Tyrell and Mr.
Right.
Robot against you, Elliot. And so hearing that and having Angela talking to our boy, Bobby Cannavale's character, it was just more clear in this episode. But sometimes I forget where all the pieces are.
Yeah.
So what exactly is supposed to happen in stage 2? Like, I thought I remember some key information being the building wasn't going to have people in it, and then it was about people being inside, and so I think, couldn't remember exactly where we were in the plannings of this.
I think that's the biggest thing with that Elliot's struggling with. I don't think he gives a shit if. I think he cares if they pull it off and the financial market crashes and all this stuff, but I think he's already seen that and nothing really changed, and so there's that dynamic. But I think he's more concerned about innocent people dying, and they actually address one issue that I was sort of struggling with Angela, because despite whatever her motives are and this and that, which I think that is still sort of hazy. Like, I know that she's trying to get justice for her parents dying, and she talked to White Rose, and White Rose wooed her. Yeah, mom dying. White Rose wooed her and all this other stuff. But the fact that she's on this mission, but the innocent people were going to die, I was always sort of questioning like her morality, in the sense that like this doesn't seems like kind of a big jump.
I think that's part of why
they
I thought
addressed
they weren't
that
going
though.
to.
They addressed that though, because she made the statement of, I thought the people were going to be out of the building, and Bobby Cannavale's character said that that's already been done. Da, 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 da.
Right. And maybe that's why I was confused.
Which was Elliot's doing.
Yeah.
Calling and I'm assuming it was. We never really got resolution with that.
So anyway, I thought this was where you were going, was that yes, this was commercial free. And I thought this was really cool to sort of have like an event episode in the middle of the season. And again,
it's the off episode.
It was another way to sort of be inventive with what they're doing, because the Tyrell episode was a little more, not that they were, reinventing the wheel, but I mean for the show in particular, to pull that kind of trick. So I thought this kind of fell right in line, and continues to be exciting. And the no commercial thing, and maybe we can talk about the fact that it was shot continuously and everything like that, but I didn't breathe for 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why there's not a lot to talk about, because this was such a contained episode. I mean, it literally it reminded me of the hacking version of like The Raid, where they're just like going to all these different levels of this building. And the episode is essentially split up into 2 parts. It was half spending time with Elliot, half spending time with Angela, which I thought was sort of interesting, because when I found out about the concept, which was after the fact, this was promoted as like the most groundbreaking episode and whatever. When I found out what the shtick was, which I don't think is much of a spoiler, like I saw some people reporting, the Mr. Robot episode, the gimmick of the single take and all that stuff. It's not a spoiler. Yeah, I don't think it's a spoiler at all. But when I went into it, I fully expected just to follow Elliot the entire time.
Right.
The fact that it was broken up the way it was clever, I think. it's interesting because we've talked before about how this show could easily, if it wanted to, just be every episode solving a hack or something like this. For there to actually be this event and get it like this, it's even more rewarding, I think. It was exciting. It was action-packed the entire time. Not a lot going on with the greater plot, I think.
It's funny because I was, again, for 45 minutes, I didn't breathe. And I thought it was funny how, especially in the first half of the show, in my mind, I was thinking, I am captivated. This is intense. This was about Elliot trying not to get fired from a job.
Right.
I was like, that's really, really cool that I feel this way about this nothing of an episode, even though, of course, it's not nothing. But
yeah,
in simplest terms, that's what I was captivated by, was him just not getting fired. And so I thought that the gimmick, as some might call it, I think that actually kind of empowered that and made it a lot more interesting.
It was also executed really well.
Yeah,
like the way it was done was, it wasn't just a camera following around.
At the start, I was kind of questioning it because he's talking about the sexual anecdotes with his friend, and the camera at one point just like takes a big close up on his friend for no reason, and then they come back to Elliot, and I'm like, is this gonna be silly? Because I didn't really understand the meaning of that. And then there's another shot where I was a little bit confused. The shot where it leaves the building when Angela is working on that.
Yeah, and
it leaves the building for a minute.
Down to the ground, yeah.
Which he addressed on the Verge after show. But anyway,
what did he say about it?
That he just wanted to show perspective, that she was one little thing that's going on and with all of this. And by the way, the Verge after show, I watched maybe 3 minutes of it. You know what show is a lot better than The Verge's Mr. Robot after show?
Sight and Sounds after show.
Let's Talk Legion.
Yeah.
2. That's where I was going, but yeah, okay. It was nothing. After this
it's awkward.
After this groundbreaking episode that they just had, they had Sam Esmail over Skype. Within 2 minutes of them talking about this groundbreaking episode, they took a Reddit question. And the question was, is Tyrell in love with Mr. Robot or Elliot? Why are you taking that fan question immediately into your show? Like, he asked one question. He asked, what was the shot with Angela about? And I was like, what? That's all you wanted to ask? That's your first question? And then they went to that. And
hey, The Verge, stick to reviewing iPhones and shit.
It sucked.
Stay in your lane.
That sucked.
What the hell? Yeah, I watched it one time before. You know what? At the end of the day, he wishes that USA would just give the rights to the watch, and he could just be criticized by Andy Greenwald the whole time.
Yeah,
it's been a much more interesting after show.
Yeah. So anyway, back to my overall thoughts. It was very tense the entire time.
Yep.
I thought the music really added to it. I actually noticed it for once.
Did you take notes? You reading notes?
Part of me, I had wrote a couple things down. Part of me was a little exhausted by the narration.
Yeah.
Because that's like, I'm not new to narration in the show, but that's what, for the first half with Elliot, all it was him talking to himself. And I was a little exhausted by it.
It was an interesting concept, though, the fact that his programming or whatever had been thrown off because he'd had that quote-unquote glitch while he was Mr. Robot, and he flashed back into himself, and that had sort of thrown off his entire system, so to speak.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool that he was sort of dealing with that in the midst of like getting fired and all this other stuff. The other thing about this episode that was good was the fact that it really showcased every strong aspect of the character of Elliot. We got to see his hacking powers at work. We got to see all the crazy little introspective things going on with inside his own mind, his stresses, his anxieties, his thoughts on the world at certain times, and his ability to, he has this, they don't do it often, but like when he goes into that boardroom and he becomes somebody else, it was a lot of fun to sort of see him do that interaction.
Yeah.
When it shifted over to Angela,
Same with him approaching the as the IT guy a little bit before that.
Exactly. When it shifted over to Angela, it was sort of a much different episode. Then it became more of like a let's get to point A to point B sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which was exciting. And it was when that riot was going on.
It felt like the Purge or something. Like,
Yeah.
that's something that I've been really, really wanting. And we've talked a lot about this. This is another great thing about this episode is not only did we get to see Elliot showcased, but it was the revolution. Part of the revolution that I think is key to this, and it's the part that I'm missing the most. It's like it never really feels like that world. So I was glad to see the second half be all about this revolution and actually being afraid of F Society, because
Right.
I think we've loved to kind of be behind F Society and back the fact that this is so comments so much on our everyday world.
Well, this season sort of made you question that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be a part of it or not. And
Right.
The other thing too about this episode, or at least what it reminds me of, is this is Mr. Robot's Battle of the Bastards, I think. Not in quality, not in the fact that like, oh, we walked out of it, it was amazing. It was a spectacle achievement, I think. And the fact that this was such a climactic event, like preventing phase 2. I had no idea we're going to be dealing with this right now, honestly. And the fact that they made it such a centerpiece in the season and in the show itself is sort of, I think other shows should take note. Like even a show like Game of Thrones, like when you have these big events that you're leading up to, let's just get into it. Let's celebrate this big climactic event. And I just think they pulled it off really, really well, because they also spent this entire event with probably the two most important characters of the show, which is Elliot and Angela. I mean, obviously Mr. Robot is a big
Darlene,
character.
yeah.
Darlene
Briefly.
too. Yeah. And it's, I don't know, man. It was, I fully went into this after knowing what it was going to be with one giant eye roll. Like I thought it was just going to be.
I know. I was
Shitty.
disappointed in you
Yeah.
when you said that. I also think it's awesome how limited space there was.
Yeah.
2 floors of an office, and then when they went outside, even though if you could feel this big monumental newsworthy protest, you only saw like you were behind the wall of people, and that was it.
That was interesting.
You never left that street corner, and I thought it was really, really impactful that way.
I want to see a map of how everything traveled, because the way that it transitioned from one story to another was they had that meeting with Darlene and Elliot outside and in front of the crowd, and then the camera literally goes around the crowd and follows somebody that's going through the crowd to throw that beer bottle. And it was just
right.
It's cool. It's just really cool.
So I loved the takeover, and I loved actually being afraid of F Society a little bit. Again, it's just very, very tense. But I think low key, the most impactful thing that happened in this episode was Darlene revealing that she's been working with the FBI.
Yeah.
To Elliot, and I think that's the piece moving forward that we're going to be dealing with the most. Whether it be, I don't know. I mean, where do you go? I mean, Elliot right now is in the middle of trying to stop this. So does he team up, or does Darlene? I don't know.
That's probably my biggest criticism, I think, with the season so far, is that that's something I just haven't really bought into. The fact that she's working with the FBI and the FBI want to thwart the same plans that Elliot does, but Elliot doesn't want to work with them. Like, I'm just not fully sold on that. Like,
okay.
Because his reasoning is there's a piece of me that doesn't, that wants to solve it. That's the answer that we got last week. And I'm just like, that's kind of I don't know. Obviously we're going in that direction. There will be a moment when Baby Streep, which we've had too little of in this season, where she is.
We need a scene with her and Alexa again.
Well, yeah, for sure. There will be a scene where they come face to face and they have to work together, but maybe not in the way that we think, because we also know that the FBI is compromised as well. So that's all fascinating.
Yeah. Last week I was really feeling that Darlene was a goner. This episode, I thought Angela could die at any second, and I don't know. I kind of have a target on her head right now. Excuse me. I like this feeling. Right now, I mean, I think Darlene or Angela could die at any minute. I mean, it's just I don't know where we're going, and it's Mr. Robot's been a lot more fun this year.
It has been, and it's funny because every week, like, it's not necessarily that I put it off to watch it because I don't want to watch it. I put it off to watch it because we have so much to do.
Yeah.
But every single week, I'm just so locked into it.
Yeah.
And my enjoyment of it has 100% been genuine because I would tell you if I didn't like it. But I think it's interesting how the episode ended. Angela and are two characters in the episode. Main characters, Angela and Elliot, coming face to face to sort of address whatever this is. I'm interested in how the next episode picks up.
Yeah.
Very interested.
So let's talk about Disney.
Sam Esmail directing Star Wars.
That's it.
Let's wrap this up. This has been
It was almost a 3-hour
episode. Jesus
Spotify
Christ.
would not like this episode.
And just so you guys know, I'm just going to throw it out there. In the middle of this podcast, it was edited out, but my dog shit in the house. Well, he shit in the garage.
You should have just left it in. It would have been
have.
funny. I don't know why you were doing that.
It was sort of hectic.
We started off with #transparency, but you were self-conscious of the dog shitting.
It was hectic when it happened. Anyways, guys, you can find me on social media at Jaye Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E on Twitter and Instagram. Is the same for both. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel. Putting up a lot of interesting content. I feel like the theme of this weekend has been different content. Obviously, we had all the music and stuff that Ryan's been releasing. I feel like you've passed the ball to me. I've got to put some shit out. And that's coming down the pipe. But I put out a couple of videos. I put out this Bon Iver video. And I'd asked people, I said, if you want me to talk more about this, I can. But you got to let me know because I'll just go on forever. People want to know about it, but I'm a little weirded out by that. Just having that sort of content to just pollute the Sight and Sound page. Anyways, I also did like a Frank Ocean listed video.
Yeah, I wanted to address this with you. Right now, we're getting to the point. You guys probably have already noticed we're transitioning with some new artwork, some new thumbnails, particularly with the podcast. And now you've done this one. Now look,
what did you think about that one?
You are doing things that I'm not sure how to do. How am I going to keep up with?
I was wondering what you were going to say about that.
I still have a hard time cutting around my knuckles when I'm trying to take pictures.
I have problems with the fingers.
And here we are, and you are just doing things at light years beyond my comprehension with Photoshop. And I don't know, we're going to have another class.
What did I do? Just make the letters shiny?
You put some kind of satin overlay over the...
Yeah, that's exactly what that was. That's exactly what that was. Good job.
We need to have another tutorial here, I think. We'll get with it.
Just want to make some things a little bit more shinier? You want to make the pop and the boom boom?
We'll plan a date when you give me the $300 for the Photoshop and I can take your class.
I mean, you could just trade it for the class. It's about how much it's worth. Ask Matt Wilson's mom how much she paid me to teach her Photoshop. Where can they find you online?
Find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. My band Brave the Storm, our entire music catalog is on the Sight and Sound YouTube channel and also Brave the Storm's Facebook page.
On Spotify.
And Strike Twice is now on Spotify. It's an older song, but you can go definitely check that out on Spotify right now. I'll give you a reason to like our page or follow our band, whatever the hell you do on Spotify. And we have one more commentary podcast coming this week, and of course our reunion episode probably the week after that. And check out my Justice League video. That's all I got for you. Thanks so much. Hopefully we'll have Patreon up soon. We'll have a Mr. Robot t-shirt. Well, some more t-shirts in general up. SightSoundPod.com. Did you ever fix that domain, or do they just need to go to TeePublic?
Well, I was waiting until my account got replenished with some money before I added yet another subscription to it. So that was just another thing I could have subscribed to in October. But
yeah,
what a callback to the beginning of the 3 hours ago. Well, it was longer than that, but yeah, that's it. All right, we love you guys. We'll see you guys later. Goodbye.